I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
It is time for happy hour. It's the Man Cave Happy Hour. Whiskey, cigars, spirits, the stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
And I'm August Gitschlag.
And we are in the Palatial Podcast Your Voice studios, the Man Cave Suite. Out of all the suites, it has to be absolutely one of my favorites.
It's pretty sweet.
But we're here today, and we are going to do a little taste testing. We got stories to hear, and we got whiskeys to taste. I'm like uber stoked about the whole thing. But first, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, following along, like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all those podcast things in all the podcast places. We appreciate you doing that.
I want to thank Matt Fox for not being able to be here today, and so that I get to fill in for this wonderful opportunity to get some of my favorite beverage in my gullet here.
And
well, we miss you. We miss you, Matthew.
So I was at one of my favorite haunts, Keiko's. And they were doing a barrel release, and it sold out like that afternoon. Joe had one hidden for me, but
it's good to have friends in low places like the back of liquor stores.
It is. And so Joe, but they were doing this fun thing, and they were engraving the bottles, and they were, it was a thing because it was a big barrel. It was a pretty particularly sweet barrel. I have yet to crack the bottle though. I don't know. I don't save bottles. I usually crack them, but I have so many open ones now. But I want to open this one on a
go with that battle with my beer collection. It was a good enough day or a bad enough day that I'm going to open up this $25 bottle of beer today. And then I finally had to say, look, you got to drink it or else stuff turns to vinegar. So start drinking it.
That's it. So, But it was an Old Forester barrel at Keiko's. And I was lucky enough to meet the Michigan representative, Michigan or Midwest, Brian.
Michigan. Oh, look, he's here.
Brian.
Hey,
Brian is here. Brian, thanks for being with us here on the Man Cave and repping Old Forester. And we got to talking, Brian. And Brian is just, he goes, man. He's just, you're like, hi. And then he's off. Because you have so many stories to tell and you're so passionate about Old Forester. And I want you to tell it because you said there's some amazing stories, and there's stories that people don't know about Old Forester and the lines and how it came to be, and how all these variations came to be. But before we find out about Old Forester, Brian, tell me about your childhood.
Well, I grew up on a small. No, I grew up here in Metro Detroit. Okay. I graduated from Catholic Central in '94. I met my wife sometime in my mid-20s, and we've been together ever since. About 9 years in Chicago as a bartender, bar manager, and then back in the spirits industry, working for distributors and suppliers for about 10 years now. It seems impossible to believe that that's the case, but it's been about 10 years in the spirits industry, repping everything from the bottomest of the shelves, slinging boxes of Reuniti Ice is Nice onto floors to now, honestly, one of my absolute passions. And one of the reasons I stayed in the industry after coming into it was whiskey. Specifically, I fell in love with Scotch whiskey and the stories of Scotland. That was how I came into the business. That was how I was lured in, as they say. But then I started exploring a little bit more of American whiskey and everything from Tennessee to American bourbon and kind of everything in between. And I really fell in love with some of the stories of the real founders of American whiskeys, whether you're talking about Jasper Daniel, Jack Daniels, or you're talking about George Garvin Brown, the founder of Brown-Forman and the Old Forester brand. You can go down, who is Colonel Taylor and who is, all these characters that, Pappy Van Winkle didn't work at Buffalo Trace, not a day in his life.
Yeah.
He was a Stitzel Weller employee. And I just, you find all these really cool, fun stories and the passion behind the whiskey itself for the brands and people are diehardly loyal to their brand. There are some who explore, and there are some who just like, this is my brand of whiskey and this is what I drink.
This is a last decade phenomenon for Michigan, though. I mean,
it's a last decade phenomenon for the U.S.
For you, I mean, you're sitting in the middle of a Detroit River Water whiskey town. You know, that love their Canadian whiskeys.
Oh my gosh,
that was in all of our parents' basements.
Oh yeah.
If you got a bourbon, it was a bottle of Jack Daniels or it was a bottle of Jim Beam. And
sure.
Really, there wasn't any other option. No. Your high ass, you're showing off with your bottle of Crown Royal.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
That was in your grandparents' basement, your parents' basement.
That was
in the bar.
fancy.
And everybody's coin collector was a purple velvet bag, right?
Yeah, I still got zip ties, and those my tool bag as I was going. I'm a tool bag, but it was what I put my tools in my last vacation. Oh, I got a couple of these. Crown Royal bags.
Oh, heck
so getting my brand and finding my brand of whiskey is just a last 5 or 6 year thing for me. Like what I really like to drink.
Well, I think we're in the middle of about a 10-year exploration of American whiskey.
Yeah,
I think we're about 8. We're about in year 8 now, and whiskey runs in trends. It always has. Even dating back into the early 1950s when commercial flights across the Atlantic became accessible and affordable, and all of a sudden there's this little 50 ml of something called Glenlivet on an airplane.
Oh yeah, and the Harvey Wallbangers invented.
And all of a sudden you got people exploring this Scotch whiskey. What is Scotch, and why is there no E in this whiskey? So there's an exploration of whiskey that cycles through probably around every 50 years or so. And right now we're in the middle of a really beautiful expression of American whiskey and American bourbon, and how that's impacting the business itself. And it's
these stories you're going to tell, these are just filtering to certain parts of the country.
Yeah.
Where this is common lore and chit chat that everybody knows in Kentucky and parts of, Tennessee and Ohio, where they've grown up with this stuff around them all the time. So can't wait.
Yeah. So what, because you were on and we were talking about the one bottle that's not sitting here in front of us, the Statesman, because I was enamored with that because of the movie.
Sure.
And I've enjoyed Old Forester. I think out of these 7 bottles, I've had 5 at least. I haven't had the rye, so it's the rye and the 1897. I haven't, but I was enamored with the Statesman just because of the movie. And you were telling me it was like a 5-year deal.
There was a 5-year, I believe, and I'm going on record, so I'm prefacing with don't quote me. I believe it was a 5-year deal we had an arrangement with, where as long as they were producing movies, we were going to continue producing the Statesman whiskey for it.
Yeah.
Now they're launching. I just heard today, and I'm not going to give dates because I literally just heard this morning on our call.
But there's another sequel.
There's not a sequel. They're going to be doing an Apple TV. An Apple TV. It's not the same Statesman.
Okay,
but it's the same company, same universe as the Statesman.
Universe.
Well, the MC's changed everything. IP is IP now, right?
Yeah.
But we're actually going to be releasing a RTD Statesman whiskey sour, which you can probably look forward to sometime in January or February.
Okay, cool. So I enjoy that. So that started our conversation. You said there's stories about Old Forester that most people don't know. So what do we need to know about the foundation of Old Forester, and how does that lead us to the first 2 of these bottles, right?
Well, the foundation of Old Forester is actually a pharmacist, not a whiskey distiller.
Oh.
That's how you got by the rules back in the day, right?
Well, this wasn't even getting by the rules. This was just the rules.
Right.
So George Garvin Brown was a pharmaceutical sales rep. He was not a whiskey distiller. He was not a whiskey salesperson, other than working in the distilleries, or working in the pharmacies, I should say. Well, what happened was, back in the mid 1800s, you could not buy your whiskey by the bottle. You had a bottle, you went into your pharmacy with your prescription, or you went into your local tavern, and they would fill up your bottle directly from the barrel. Now, imagine I'm a less than scrupulous businessman, and my month's been a little bit lean, and I need that whiskey to last me a little bit longer. How am I going to make that happen? Maybe a little water, maybe a little manure, maybe a little turpentine, maybe a little tobacco spit. You got to get the color just right.
Yeah.
So I would stretch my whiskey. Well, if you're a salesperson whose business depends on the quality and consistency of your whiskey, then this isn't good for business. They're going to look at the back of that barrel and say, well, I'm not buying from that guy. The last time I bought it from there, it was 80% tobacco spit.
Yeah.
So George Garvin Brown decided he wanted to put his whiskey in a glass bottle. And he knew the cost was going to go up. He knew it was going to be a little bit more challenging to sell. He knew it was going to have some impact. So he decided at the time that he also needed a a sponsorship or a friendship or a relationship with a medical community. And lo and behold, his family friend, Dr. William Forrester, was available to him and said, I've written articles for years about the medicinal quality of
simply
whiskey.
for the medicinal
Amen.
purposes.
Listen, it's got its pluses, so outside of that, right? So we can use my name on it, and Dr. Forrester spelled his name Forrester. And if you get a chance to go through the Old Forester Distillery today, you'll see old ads that spell Old Forester or Forrester Forrester, Forrester.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. William Forrester, I'll put my name on it. We'll sell it as a licensed medical quality whiskey. And you can put it in glass bottles and you can charge more for it that way. You've got a medical sponsorship. You've got all these recommendations for it, and it should move a lot better. You'll sell more, but you'll sell more at a higher cost. Okay, it sounds like a plan. So with the help of his an Irish immigrant named Mr. Thompson, they together sourced whiskey from 3 different whiskey suppliers. They did not distill their own whiskey for the first 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Thompson, by the by, would go on in 1890. It'd separate from George to go on and found the Thompson Distillery Company, which we know today as the Yellowstone Distillery Company.
Oh, okay.
So that is the origin. That is the beginning point of where and why we put whiskey into glass bottles. It was a quality and consistency issue. And George Garvin Brown wrote on the front of his bottle, excuse me, I'll read it out loud for you.
There you are.
This whiskey is distilled by us only, and we are responsible for its richness and fine quality. Its elegant flavor solely due to the original fineness and developed with care. There is nothing better in the market.
You don't have that memorized yet? It's not like a vow that you have
I've done, as many times as I've repeated it, I never want to leave a word out.
I get it.
And I always stumble
I swear
on
people in for a
fineness.
living, and I always look at the sheet. I mean,
Oh yeah, I always stumble on fineness because it's not a natural flowing word.
Sure,
but
sure.
it's right there on the bottle, and that was the promise on the beginning of our first bottle in 1870. That was George Garvin's promise, and his signature still resides on every single one of our bottles today. George Garvin Brown's signature is on the bottle. That signature is indicative to us of quality and consistency. That is our promise to the marketplace, is that when you open a bottle of Old Forester, it's going to taste like the last bottle of Old Forester, and the one before that and the one after that's going to taste the same as well.
All right. So you said if you had a bottle of Old Forester 86 there from 20 years ago, you crack that puppy today and you're doing a taste test, they should be spot on.
You shouldn't be. If I blind tasted you on a well-stored bottle of Old Forester 86.
Well stored.
Well stored is important. You put it in the sunshine and it's all bets are off. But
yeah.
a well-stored bottle of Old Forester 86, if you open them up yet today and you open up, and we blind tasted the 2 bottles,
sure.
In a perfect world, you would not be able to tell the difference between the 2.
Right on. So there's what's the difference between the Old Forester 86 proof and the Old Forester 1870 original batch?
So it's proof. First of all, the original batch is 90 proof. That is where George Garvin Brown and where the Old Forester world believes that our whiskey resides at its best representation. If you've never had Old Forester 1870 on the nose, it's exactly what
I happen to have some right here.
Oh, it's right.
I do believe.
Oh, in my glass.
Would you looky there?
Looky there. On the nose, this is what bourbon should smell like. It's got that brown sugar, that caramel, that butteriness to it. It's if someone was making a candle of what bourbon smelled like, this would be the starting point right here.
Where do I buy that candle? You guys don't sell that one yet? I'm sure someone's got a
someone's
candle.
got to have
They
a bourbon
do.
candle.
They do. Oh, they
do. I have it. But it doesn't smell like this.
No. But this is what bourbon should smell like. This is,
like chemical bourbon in the candle world. So,
so this is 72% corn, 18% rye, 10%, 72, 18, 10% barley. This is a high corn mash bill. This is exactly what bourbon should taste and smell like. The difference between the 1870 and the 86 proof, the 86 proof was the whiskey was proofed down in the middle of the clear liquid, the clear spirits phase that started right around this mid 1970s. Vodka became very in vogue, gin became very in vogue, and tequila started taking over the marketplace, and people were looking for a lower proof spirit. So we did virtually everything we could think of. I think there was even the industry as a whole, I'm saying, not just Old Forester.
Yeah.
I think there was even a light bourbon at one point. There was a clear bourbon where they stripped it with charcoal. I mean, everybody did everything they could have to keep that spirits industry alive. And 86 was kind of the compromise of Brown-Forman. We decided that this was a great place. Our whiskey lived greatly at 86 proof. We could produce it in volume and mass. We could produce it in large batches. We could keep the proof down just a little bit under that 90 proof. Still had an 80 in it, so people were a little bit more comfortable in approaching it. It was a great, I mean, anybody who's ever been a bartender and mixed bourbon cocktails, old fashions, Manhattans, whiskey sours, take your pick. You know, this is a beautiful, beautiful mixing whiskey. It holds up. It's strong. It's got good flavor and good characteristics, and it blends well with other cocktails. So Old Forester 86 is still great to sip, still great neat. But if you want a cocktail whiskey, then this is your one right here. The 90 proof that we're dealing with here, the 1870 as our label calls it, is a small batch whiskey. It is not a large batch whiskey. It's less than 99 barrels. That's an industry comment. So we are dealing with small batch whiskeys on all four of these: the 1870, 97, 10, and 20.
So how many years have this been rolling around in the barrel compared to the 86?
We do not put age statements on any of our whiskey.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar, and I'm assuming you guys are, but maybe someone listening isn't, the moment you put an age statement on your whiskey, the youngest drop of whiskey in your bottle must be that age.
Yes.
So if someone's walking by with a little tube of 1-year-old whiskey and it drops into the barrel, well, now you've got 1-year-old whiskey. No matter how much 10-year-old whiskey's in there, that's a 1-year-old whiskey.
Sure.
So we don't put age statements on it because we don't want to be restricted by that age statement. If a whiskey's ready to go at 5 years, it's ready to go at 5 years. Nothing we can do about that. We don't want to hold it and set it and age it another.
You have a flavor standard,
correct,
over an age standard,
correct. So age standards are great. I think that you will find that a lot of people in Scotland are about done with age standards. You'll be noticing it a lot more with houses like Bruichladdich and several of the others in Scotland who are removing age statements altogether from their bottles.
So they need to move product.
Well, they need to move product, but they also their whiskey's ready.
Yeah.
You know, if they've had 2 or 3 temperate summers in Scotland, which is, you know, uncommon but not wholly uncommon, the whiskey's ready after 10 years. They don't.
You know, a buddy of mine had a class at NYU in Scotch.
Oh,
that was his 10 o'clock Friday afternown class was Scotch. Scotch.
It's a little bit early for Scotch mix. I
don't know that it is.
Now, my dad used to talk about a woman he knew that when he was a kid that drank Scotch and milk. And that was just a style of one region. And I mentioned it to my buddy who took the class. He said there's a region of Scotland that drinks Scotch and milk. That's what they do.
That's a little crazy.
Yeah. That is news to me.
It's a heartburn thing. It kind of eased it all down.
That tracks. I get it. Man, that's
all you listeners, write in to the show and tell us the history of Scotch and milk.
Yeah,
I'm sure someone's grandmother did that.
Yeah,
someone knows.
Yep.
I don't know. Scotch makes me crazy.
Personally, not a fan, but you know,
well,
I get it.
Well, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. We do own 3 Scottish distilleries, so I can speak with a higher level of authority, I think, probably than most. But I believe sincerely that there is a Scotch for everybody.
Okay.
If I'm going to hold my hands up in the middle of a podcast, and this is great radio here, but if your flavor profile of bourbon is right here, your flavor profile of Scotch is your arms extended as wide as they can reach, and it's the maturation process, right? So everything, you know, we can go through the ABCs of bourbon if but I'm sure your listeners are familiar with it, but bourbon must be aged on new charred white oak barrels. Scotch has no such restrictions. You want to use a Chardonnay barrel? You want to use a Spanish oak barrel? You want to use a French oak barrel?
I'd see another, 40 minutes.
Oh yeah.
On Scotch history and Scotch learning here.
No.
Yeah, because we got all this in front of us. We're going to talk about. So
70%. So this 1870 and the Old Forester 86. Those are both 70% corn.
Our entire everything here except for the rye is made in a 72 1810 mash bill.
Really?
We do not. That is the only mash bill that we use at Old Forester. Birthday bourbon 72 1810. Old Forester 100 proof 72 1810.
Okay.
That is our mash bill. It is.
It's not corny. It's on the nose.
I don't think it was very funny.
Waka waka.
Oh, you stole my joke.
I was surprised to hear it was that much corn.
Well, there's the sweetness exists with the maturation process. So the longer you go, the more in and out of the woods you get, the more through the charcoal becomes.
Sure.
The more of that vanilla, the more of that caramel, the more of that butterscotch is going to be pulled through the wood. So you asked about age statements, and, and I cautiously avoided your comment, but we can safely say that none of these bottles, these 4 Whiskey Row bottles, will be less than 6 years old, generally speaking.
Sure. Okay.
I'm not going again. We're not going to say, oh, it's a 6-year-old whiskey, because of reasons, but
sure.
But generally speaking,
but they could even feasibly be 8.
They could feasibly be 8. There could be 10-year-old whiskey in some of these bottles.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was particularly cold in one corner of a warehouse where they found some outstanding whiskey, but it took 10 years to get.
I have no problem with blended whiskeys.
Yeah.
I think that there is a flavor consistency there that I'm actually looking for as a consumer.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, if I want to mess around with it, then I go play with my own barrel, or you do that whole other process, go party store to party store and find somewhere different bar to bar to find their little flavored deal. But if I'm going to the store, I want it to taste the same every damn time.
Well, I should know what my product's going to taste like, right?
Yeah,
I should know when I buy a bottle of anything, what's my bottle.
That's where your loyalty comes from, because you know what you're getting.
McDonald's doesn't McDonald's because of the food's so great. It's because that I know when I go to a McDonald's, I'm getting the same product every time. Now, I'm certainly not comparing any whiskey to a McDonald's, but I'm saying the reason the things are successful is because a consumer knows what they're going to receive.
Right.
They're going to walk in and say, oh, I picked up this bottle. I know what this bottle tastes like. I'm going to remain, whether or not I buy 15 other bottles, that bottle will always be on my back bar.
Yeah.
And I've had each one of these, and there's only been 2 locations where I drink my Old Forester that I've had this whole lineup. Once was a dive bar in Nashville, and the other one was, and I just drew a blank, Butter Run Saloon over there on the east side.
Dave's my guy.
Dave Harden, Papa Harden, as I call him.
Yes.
Papa Harden's that's where I've had the birthday. 2 different versions of it.
Dave had his own barrel last year.
He had his own barrel. Yes, I tried that.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I look for is, what do you got from Old Forester, Papa Harden? And he lets me know. So,
well, if you're another great whiskey bar who does carry our entire lineup, and I've done a lot of business with him over the years, is Charlie's, still on Main. If you don't know Charlie Berry, he is he has an incredible back bar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you walk in and you just start looking up.
Yeah.
And you keep looking up.
The Painted Lady in Hamtramck's pretty
Painted Lady's
good
really
too. For
fantastic,
their price
sure.
points are on they're outstanding there.
I have not found anybody in Michigan that I walked in, looked at the list and thought, come on, just stop. You know, most of our Michigan bars are fairly reasonable, within a couple dollars here or there. There's a universal pricing structure that they seem to have.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay about the same, give or take, you know, a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. But there are some, Michigan is just truly blessed to have some incredible cocktail and whiskey establishments around Metro Detroit.
So Charlie's on Main, you said?
Yes, sir.
Right,
Milford, Michigan.
Okay.
Oh, Milford's Maine. There's lots of Main streets around.
Yes,
buddy.
Milford's Maine.
All right.
Yes, Milford.
Yeah.
Now I know what you're talking
Now
about.
I know what you're talking about. I haven't been there, but I it's on the list. I got a couple of friends over a little further west. And they're like, "You got to come with us." I'm like, "All right."
Well, I was thinking of downtown Charlie's on Main and Clawson. I'm like, really? That breakfast joint's got good whiskey?
Not that one.
Not that one. Not that one.
Wrong, Charlie's.
Not that
Whiskey Taco right up the road, same owners.
one. All right.
Not bad.
That is
Charlie's got good stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whiskey Tango's good.
All right. So we're moving off of the 86 and the 1870. Are we going chronologically to 1897?
Story by
Well,
story
let's tell the story.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in 1870, as I mentioned, George decided that he wanted to create a promise, and we read the promise, and it's essentially about quality and consistency. The best of the bottles of the Whiskey Row series are times we had to break that promise of quality and consistency for one reason or another. In 1897, many know that the Bottled in Bond Act was enacted for the first time.
We've discussed that before here.
Yes. Yeah.
I would imagine. The Bottled in Bond Act stipulated a whole bunch of different things, not the least of which was you had to pay a tax assessor to live on your property, and he was the only person who had access to your rick houses. You had to, these were the laws that became the 1964 Bourbon Act, the Native Spirits
It was
Act.
the only way they could ensure some quality back then.
Right.
Really.
Right. And it was led by a gentleman who we all know, Mr. Taylor,
Yep.
Mr. Colonel Taylor, who was never a colonel. God bless his heart.
There's a lot of those honorary colonels.
There's a
out
lot
there.
of honorary colonels in the South. No,
yeah.
he's an incredible businessman and incredible whiskey maker too. But he was leading that push for some standardized quality in the liquor industry, and we were not against that. Obviously, we were for that, but our condition was we wanted to keep our whiskey at 90 proof. we are already doing everything that you're asking us to do. We're sourcing our whiskey ethically. We're creating a proper mash bill. We're using American products. We're putting our whiskey in glass bottles. We just want to stay at 90 proof.
Yeah.
Well, the law passed, the Bottled and Bond Act passed, and with that Bottled and Bond Act passing came the 100 proof stipulation.
Yeah, 100 proof minimum.
So we've had a chance to sip here. I'll pass the bottle. I'm not going to try to reach across everybody and pour around computers that feels like it's got bad idea written all over it.
Yeah. You got that whole wall of bourbon ahead of you there.
Yeah. So in 1890s, but they stipulated that 100 proof. So we had to break our promise. Our promise of consistency was going to be broken. We weren't breaking our promise of quality. We were breaking our promise of consistency.
Right.
So that promise of rested bottles and all of those things, that was going to be something that was completely different for us by coming out with a strict 100 proof whiskey. And we recognized at the time, George and his son Owsley recognized at the time, that without that government stamp, the whiskey wasn't going to sell. That was going to become a problem. You weren't going to sell to retailers. You might still keep your pharmacies, but pharmacies were becoming less and less bound by whiskey, and they would for the next 20 years or so. But there was, you had to have that government tax stamp on your bottle of whiskey. Now, the interesting thing about this one is, though these products are roughly the same, from the same mash bill, from the same warehouses, one of the things you'll notice about this one is just the dramatic difference to me in the taste profile. This gets into black pepper. This gets into white pepper. This gets into some of those darker notes on the palate, especially the palate. The nose is still a lot of sweetness, a lot of vanilla, a lot of brown sugar, but getting into the palate, you start getting those pepper notes coming out of the wood grain, the white oak wood grain.
It's, well, obviously, I mean, it's, it's at 100 proof and that's 90. It is a little bit of jump in the warmth of it. The heat. I don't think your as they like to call it, your Kentucky hug is any stronger. Yeah.
But you feel that warmth roll across, especially your mid palate, and just all the way down your throat, and you're just warmed by it. Like, this is my winter night bourbon where I'm sitting outside, got a little campfire going. It's autumn.
Yeah.
Just getting a chill in the air. I need to warm up a smidge. I'm just going to grab
a nip
myself
for the nip.
A nip to keep it softer.
There you go.
So, all right. So this is the 1897. So has this version been rolling since 1897? Did they abandon
we abandoned
the original batch?
We abandoned the original batch at the time, and we went to the 1897.
Yeah.
One of the things, so we abandoned, then, when the time came, we abandoned the 1897, but again, for reasons, which we'll discuss when we reach 1920.
Yeah.
But each of these have not been consistent rolling products. These are reintroductions to the marketplace, kind of coinciding with, actually a little bit preemptively, just marketed poorly, with the current American bourbon boom.
Right.
We also are the proprietors of another brand you may have heard of called Woodford Reserve.
Okay.
It's a big one.
Nope, never heard of it.
No, it's brand new for everybody. But that was
the goofy bottle one.
Yeah.
Tough to pour.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to grab it from the side. No, it's a great bourbon, but it's also a much younger bourbon in terms of its history. Only established in 1996.
Okay.
So when the bourbon boom really started, that was where the money went behind. We have this established history brand, legacy brand, that's going to keep moving, but then they missed the mark. Everybody did. We underestimated the force of the market coming into bourbon about 8 years ago. So while we were ready to roll with Woodford Reserve and the marketing was behind it and it was in place, where we missed was with Old Forester. We had these products ready to go. Well, some of them, but what we did not have was the vehicle behind it, the way we had with Woodford Reserve. So a little bit of a miss, but I think we're making up for it now. The one thing I can always say about Old Forester, and this is true for virtually any of these until supply chain issues of COVID. Thank you. It's been awesome. But we never lack product for any of these products. We never lack liquid. We may lack glass bottles from time to time, but we
truck drivers,
yeah. But we never lack liquid. These bottles are universally available. You're not going to be hunting the shelf for one of these bottles. Now, I think that's to our credit, but it's probably also to our detriment. people like hunting for bottles. It's something that people love doing. They love looking for the
Well,
horse
that
on
gives
top.
that gives some of these stores reasons to aftermarket to raise the prices up, to an unnatural, ungodly amount of money that we've been seeing with some of our local, these are versions that I have seen, which is why when I do see someone on a menu with the birthday or something else or a small batch, I will share it online. Like everyone has to go try it here. Let's go find the Forester. It's a thing. Dave Harden's great for that.
Dave Harden is.
He likes to let me know when he has them too. So,
but our products are available, and that's a huge thing for us. Is we believe that our whiskey is meant to be drank. I'm not making accusations, but we don't hold anything in our warehouses. We don't hold full bladders waiting to barrel. We don't unbarrel and then hold. We put our product into the marketplace. We bottle and we're ready to go, and we want you to drink our product. We want the product in the marketplace. We want our product to be reasonable and affordable, $44 to $65.
Yeah.
Whether that's a little bit higher than most or a little bit cheaper than some, it's irrelevant. We want our whiskey affordable. I know how much people do pay for birthday bourbon, but I also know how much our intention is for people to pay for birthday bourbon.
Right.
We don't overprice it. We're not pricing a $300 bottle of whiskey.
Right.
We're pricing a $140 bottle of whiskey that's age statemented at, I think the youngest ever has been 10 years. I know the youngest ever has been 10 years.
Yeah.
We're not trying to take the consumer or take the whiskey away from the consumer. We want the consumer to have the whiskey. Unfortunately, the marketplace has driven us to a place where even those special expressions, the birthday bourbons, the 150s, the 117 series that we're releasing as Kentucky onlys right now, the Kings of Kentucky, those types of things, those are only available for the elite few, which is unfortunate in my opinion. But
well, my cousin's coming from Louisville in a couple weeks. I'll put those on the list.
Listen, if he's there on Thursday, tell him to go to the Old Forester Distillery. We're releasing our 117 series fair. So we had a fire in 115 North Main Street, which is where our distillery rests today. And the firefighters saved the distillery and saved the property. This wasn't just throw a couple bottles of water on it. This was a legit fire.
Yeah.
Almost took down Main Street and almost took down Whiskey what we call Whiskey Row. And those firefighters saved it. So we actually just released one of our 117 series bottles for them, for the firefighters. It'll be a distillery only and Kentucky only release, but we call it the one part of the 117 series. So they're special edition bottles, special tribute bottles, and this one is for those firefighters and everything. It's a double oaked. It's a long expression double oaked. It's supposedly a beautiful whiskey. I haven't gotten any yet.
Okay, all right.
I got my fingers crossed.
Text has been sent. Yeah, he's coming in a couple weeks.
There you are.
Yeah.
Orders have been placed. So bottled and bond 100 proof. Yeah, it is. It's a little warmer, and I'm not gonna say spicier, but there's slightly different flavors, more mature flavors in there.
A little more cinnamon, a little more allspice, a little more coriander, a little bit. To use your word, mature. I just call it my spicier bourbon.
Yeah,
it's not hot. It's not.
But I think
it's not astringent.
is overselling it on spicy. It's
no.
But I just can't come up with a better word for it. So yes, it is spicy.
Sometimes when I try to find other words, I end up kind of describing an astringency to it.
Right.
And it doesn't have that astringency. It's not a medicinal wipe or anything like that. But there's
can't use it for my shaving cuts.
I would not.
Yeah.
It'd probably still hurt at 100 50% ABV. But it's got more character to it, and that in that spice realm of the flavor wheel. When you start looking at where things are being influenced, you're getting a lot more spice off the 97.
Yeah. So the next time you guys had to break the rules,
1910.
So what happened in 1910?
Well, in 1902, we got to backtrack the story just a wee bit.
All right.
In 1902, we moved our. That was good. Well played. Nice pop.
Love it.
We moved our distillery to Mattingly Street. We needed to increase our distillation, so we left what was at the time 117 North Main Street, and we moved to Mattingly Street, where we continued our distillation through a much larger facility with a much larger production bottling line. In 1910, we had a fire on that bottling line.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen a bottling line, but if you can imagine, you've got a row of glass
We've
bottles.
all seen Laverne and Shirley.
Chocolate, not bourbon, but okay, sure,
All right,
sure.
all right.
So you can
A little
imagine
glove and
Yeah, a little glove goes by.
stuffing whiskey in your shirt probably doesn't work quite as well. But
They found a way. Trust me, they found a way.
You can imagine fire on a bottling line, and directly hovering above that's going to be your big old vat of whiskey.
Boy.
50, 60 barrels of whiskey. Well, they realized very quickly they needed to get that whiskey out of there, lest it go kaboom. So they took that whiskey, put it straight back into barrels. Fortunately, we are very meticulous records keepers at Brown-Forman, and we knew exactly what those barrels were, what their char levels were, and all of that good stuff. So we were able to replicate this process some 100 years later.
Okay.
But what accidentally happened when they went back and they started bottling these barrels again, they tasted it and they realized they had a problem. It was good whiskey, but it wasn't Old Forester.
Right.
So George Garvin Brown, being a Scotsman first and foremost, was not going to dispose of the whiskey and drain it but he also wouldn't.
Good man.
He also wasn't willing to sell it as Old Forester either. So he listed the bottle as Old Fine Whiskey. And what he had accidentally done was created America's first double oak. So this is the first time double oak whiskeys were introduced into the market, going from a new barrel, from an aged barrel, 6-8 years in a barrel, taking it out of that barrel, putting it into a brand new charred oak barrel, and starting all the way over again.
Okay.
This was the first time reasonably that had happened.
Oh.
So when you come up with something like that, you need to keep records because charring and toasting matters.
Yeah.
So if anybody's familiar with, and when I say double oak, a lot of people's imagination is immediately going to go to Woodford Reserve.
Sure, that's exactly what I think of.
That strong caramel,
Mhm.
that almost sticky sweetness.
It's pretty much the only one I've been exposed to be honest with you.
So
that had easy access to.
Yeah, and that's the only one that I think that's truly marketed as a double oak. I mean, you can think of your Balvenie double oaks.
No, I
some of your
agree.
Scotch double
I can't
oaks.
think of anything else either that says double oak.
No.
So this is a variation on that theme. Now, when you're talking about your Woodford Reserve, you're talking about a second whiskey barrel that goes through a heavy toast, where all of those sugars and all of those sweetness is pulled out of the barrel, and all of that sweetness is then charred through a light char, and then that whiskey's got to go through that crystallized sugar in and out of the whiskey barrel. Old Forester is different. Old Forester does a light toast and then a very heavy char on the barrel.
That was my next question. Was look at the light and the
I
coloring.
was trying to see if it's a little. It does seem a little darker.
It is. Oh, it's significantly darker when the bottles are actually the full size. You're a couple shades.
Oh, yeah.
I like this flavor a lot.
This is going to be much more dark chocolate, more cacao, less butterscotch, more spice. And
cacao would not have popped into my head, but you're not wrong. It's just not a flavor palette. Not a checkbox on my flavor palette, but that's a good one. Nice.
All right.
The distillery on Maine is where that's being released.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yes, cousin. As I'm texting my cousin to go get me a bottle of that.
All right. Tell your cousin to take someone with another ID and call Brian when he arrives at the state border.
Yeah. Oh, this is creamy though.
It does have a creamy. It has a nice, gentle rolling palate across it.
This is creamy to
Beautiful texture.
Yeah.
But the flavor profile is nothing like you would expect from an old. If you taste this on Woodford Reserve next to each other, you wouldn't be sure they were the same. They were both whiskeys. They're that diametrically opposed from each other.
Mm-hmm.
This one having much more of the darker, richer flavors, as opposed to the sweet, caramely, butterscotchy, like I say, almost sticky sweet. Not bad, just sticky sweet flavors of the Woodford Reserve. This is more to my palate liking. That darker earthiness, almost a tobacco and leather to the base of the palate. As opposed to some of the higher sweet notes that you get.
Well, those bars that Jamie used to hang out in, everything tasted like tobacco and leather. Back in the 80s.
I was gonna say back when we could smoke.
Yeah. All right.
So that's 1910. Not much more to that. That's how we had to break our promise.
It's got a lot of legs on it too.
Oh, it's super oily.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see my last sip.
More so
it's
than
still
the other.
dropping down.
Yeah.
Viscosity check.
And think about that too. That's at 93 proof, right?
Yeah.
So we've dropped that down under 50% ABV, and we're still getting that kind of oil off of those barrels. It's just incredible. So, but that's why we had to break our promise one more time.
Jerks.
Nature
You
and
jerks and your delicious mistakes.
oh, it's just so rude.
Yeah.
But that's what happened there. So we had a fire and we accidentally created double oaking. I mean, I don't think anybody replicated again for another 80 years, but here we are.
Yeah.
So you guys want to hear a great heist story?
Oh my God.
That's what we're here for.
Yes.
The booze and the stories behind them, right?
Yes.
So
Spirits and the stories behind
spirits
them.
and the
Gotta get
stories.
the tagline right.
Yeah, come on, check the
I'm a
boxes.
fill-in host. I'm not
These new guys, you know what I'm saying? So in January 16th of 1920, on the eve of Prohibition, the greatest heist in American whiskey history ever happened. Several distillers loaded 30,000 barrels onto a boat in Philadelphia. George Garvin Brown was there. Colonel Taylor was there. Several others. And they snuck their whiskey out overnight. If you had your whiskey in warehouses when Prohibition happened, you would be taxed for everything that you held, or you would have to destroy your whiskey. They weren't willing to do either one of those things. So what they did was there was a boat waiting in the Philadelphia harbor called the Silver Ghost. The Silver Ghost loaded up 30,000 barrels of American bourbon whiskey, and they set sail at the cover of darkness to France.
Oh.
Well, while the boat was on the water in France, they converted an old World War II munitions depot into a rickhouse in the coast of France, and they put all 30,000 of these barrels into this rickhouse. Where waiting to greet them on the docks was Owsley Brown, the oldest son of George Garvin Brown. And to this day, well, not to this day, but in 1933, when Prohibition was repealed, the toast was "Vive la France." It's time to have a drink, because the spirits boom, the American whiskey boom that happened in France because of those 30,000 barrels, really hasn't been equaled in anywhere in the world until what we're experiencing in the current day. It was 1920. The American spirits industry in France went through the roof because of those 30,000 barrels.
I don't know if you call it a heist. I'd call it more of a very successful F.U. Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Well, they stole their own whiskey and didn't have to pay a tax.
It was their own whiskey. That's why it's your stuff.
They heisted their own whiskey.
Yeah. All right.
But that was fun. So 1920, since we're right on the cusp here,
10 years later.
So 1920, this is the beginning of Prohibition. 10 distillery licenses are offered. 6 are claimed. 2 of those companies still exist today, and only one of those companies has never changed hands. We are the oldest family-owned whiskey business in the United States of America. We have never changed hands. The Brown family has always been in control and controlling interest of the Old Forester brand.
Okay.
Buffalo Trace obviously has changed hand a few times,
yeah.
and whatever. They are the other brand, by the way, that sold a medicinal whiskey during Prohibition that still exists today. We are the oldest family-owned whiskey business in the United States. We've never changed hands. We've never stopped production, we never stopped sales. Got to be careful. We've never stopped sales, even during Prohibition.
Mhm.
So,
Hey, I think the statute of limitations is worn off. I think you're okay.
Yeah.
well,
Never
you know.
I think it's past time for that. You'll be all right.
If there was a money grab to be had,
Yeah.
no, but yeah. So 1920. So the 115 here is what the government decided the medicinal value of whiskey had to be, 115 proof. So we were okay back here in 1870 at 90 proof being medicinal whiskey.
But once you get the doctors involved,
Well,
the politicians that wanted the doctors to get involved.
And what's really funny about that is that when they were starting to petition for Congress to allow whiskey to be sold as medicinal whiskey, they started looking for research papers and papers that touted the medical benefits of medicinal whiskey. And whose papers should they stumble across? Dr. William Forester.
Yeah.
Was it medicinal? It was specifically medicinal whiskey, not medicinal alcohol in general.
Medicinal whiskey in particular.
Whiskey in particular.
Yeah. So medicinal alcohol, neutral grain spirits were not necessarily said to have a medicinal quality to it, but medicinal whiskey did, and that was the distinction. That was what allowed us to continue sales. We were able to sell what inventory we had we had to pay the tax on it, then we could sell it, then we could collect our revenues, then we had to pay tax on the revenues. So I mean, it was
America.
It was it was a racket, but we were able to stay in business. And then, it was the end of 1929, they initiated what was called the Distillers Holiday. If you had stills that were up and operational, you could. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, gentlemen, take your pour on the 1920.
I was enthralled with the story.
I'm sitting here talking and forgetting.
No, my God,
forgetting to share my booze.
Please.
But
You're forgetting to share with yourself.
Well,
You're only hurting yourself.
I'm only hurting me.
Yes.
But the Distillers Holiday of 1929 allowed everybody to start and turn their stills back on for an 8-week period. You were allowed to turn your stills on in 1929 for an 8-week period. And when those stills were turned on, everybody thought 1930 Prohibition ends.
Sure.
Because they were allowing the stills to be turned on for 8 weeks, which coincided with Christmas, which was everybody's holiday.
Sure.
So obviously in 1930, Prohibition's coming to an end. We're good to go. Well, obviously we know now that it wouldn't be until December 5th, 1933 that the repeal would happen. But amazingly enough, look what everybody had sitting in their warehouses that turned on their stills in 1929. Beautifully aged 4-year-old whiskey, just ready to roll out the back.
So this one's an oof for me. Oof.
Oofta.
Oof.
No,
From Minnesota there with your oofta.
So, but here's the thing: even though we're getting, higher alcohol content,
Sure.
I'm not getting an ethanol. I'm not getting a Bernie ethanol. I think it has to do with the maturity.
Maturation.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad because that always turns me off. Is it gets ethanol-y on me. There's a lot of whiskeys that go that route. This hasn't done it yet.
When you get into I think you run a fine line there with, I think you start getting to 115, 120, 125. The alcohol vapor becomes a little bit more problematic.
Yeah,
and if we were, and I could make you smell it. If we take our whiskey glass and we give it a couple good swirls and then go straight in on your nose,
really hard on it,
really hard right on it, you'll get that ethanol right off the top
there
of your
it is.
nose. Yeah.
So let a match around this one.
So we're
around my nose hairs.
We're breaking the surface tension there. We're letting that alcohol vapor come up into our glass. We're sending it up the tulip.
Do it on purpose
a little bit. But if you allow your surface tension to just rest a little bit and just hold there, now go to your nose. You're going to get those nice sweet caramely notes. You're going to get the vanilla and those really high profile notes.
Now, am I cheating if I put an ice cube in this?
No,
you don't have any issues with that.
No, it's well. Let me.
I know. I'm usually when it comes to anything over the 90s, I'm putting a cube in.
So I'll say this first and foremost: the only wrong way to drink your whiskey is the way you don't like it.
Yeah, the way you don't like it. Okay.
I believe that.
That is also consistent amongst whiskey reps.
Well, listen, you'd have to be a little bit
We've talked about that.
You'd have to be a wee bit of a schmuck to criticize someone for how they drink anything.
Yeah,
you like it how you like it. It's how you enjoy it.
We spoke earlier about how I enjoy drinking your rye.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a certain refreshing way of drinking it.
Yeah, so. and again, I drink
ice cube. Look at that.
I did have ice cube.
I drink a good chunk. Now there is a real reason.
Did you try it?
Yes, I did
try it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. There is a real reason.
Then I will allow you.
Yeah, I went oof when it was straight. That's why I'm like,
you've tried it. You may now imbibe. You've done it raw. Now you get to do it how you like it.
Butter.
Oh, a butter run saloon glass. There you go. Lots of love for Papa Hardin today.
Well, there is a legitimate reason to add water to your whiskey.
Oh yeah.
If you got your bottle of water over there, if you took a couple of drops off the tip of your finger and dropped it into your whiskey, you're going to break those oils. Water.
I always heard this. You got to open up the whiskey, and is that a real thing?
Oh, sure.
That is a real thing. It's not just some bow.
Yeah, you've already dropped your ice cube in, but if you got another whiskey there, we can do another glass. We can do an experiment here real quick.
Or I got another Glencairn.
Oh yeah, let's do a Glencairn. Just keep it room temperature here.
Okay.
So if you get your water bottle out there and get the tip of your finger wet, and I just splashed whiskey all over your table.
Oh, it's all good.
It's not the first time.
It's gonna smell nice in the morning.
There's a lot shittier spirits have been spilled on this table than what you got right here. Trust me.
So I pulled the 1920 here for you. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and take that there and get the tip of your finger wet.
Let me. Am I supposed to try it first?
You can go ahead first. Give it a nose and give it a taste.
So you can't say that's what she said anymore because
it's
but you can say that's the name of my porno.
Yeah.
All right.
So now just get the tip of your finger wet so that you can get. You want drops. You don't want.
I'm trying to get it. It's tough to regulate.
It's all right. It's all right. There you go.
So
just get a couple drippy drippies in there. There you go. Perfect. Now give yourself another nose. Just right away, you're going to look down into your glass and you're going to see what looks like an oil stain. That water and that whiskey are fighting. The whiskey is hydrophobic. It doesn't like water. All those oils are changing up and fighting your whiskey. And it's going to give it in my opinion, the things I notice more now are going to be the floral notes when I start adding whiskey and breaking up my water. You're going to start.
Can you see this oil slick on the podcast? I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah.
it's a little. It is. I've never paid attention to. Oh, I absolutely see it now.
You see,
but the right light, I absolutely see it.
Yeah. So the whiskey and the water are fighting each other. Whiskey's hydrophobic. It doesn't like water. It wants to fight it and break it up. So now when you go to your nose, one of the things you should notice, or that I pull away from, are much more floral notes. You're going to start getting a little bit of rose. You're going to start getting a little bit of carnation. Some of those deeper, dark red floral notes. And
when you say not as harsh.
Yeah, it's lighter. It's
just lighter. I guess harsh isn't really the word, but it just lightens up.
It's lighter.
Yeah.
Now when you put it on your palate, and we didn't proof that down 10 points. We didn't proof it down 5 points. But when you put it on the palate, what you're going to discover is that a lot more of the berries, the red berries that you get from oak barrels are going to become a little bit more prevalent. You should discover a little bit of red, a little bit of cranberry, a little bit of cherry. Some of those things will be a little bit more prevalent. A lot more of the earthiness will come through as well. A lot more of the
that was way too much.
You just flooded it. So cousin Phil in Louisville is now listening. What time should he be there at the distillery on Main?
I believe that they open at 8 o'clock in the morning.
So we're talking. There's not a midday. It's like some places do midday releases.
No,
like it's a 1 o'clock thing.
We open up.
They don't want people lined up at 7 in the morning to get in. They want.
We definitely want people lined up in the morning. Yeah. We just did it with Jack. So, it's a early time release. So
is that Phil?
Yeah, it's cousin Phil. Oh, you know Phil.
Phil's chiming in. Hey, Phil.
Oh, he is. That's my cousin.
So yeah. He always likes to try it neat and then add the ice to it. Add the.
I'm the same way. I always do everything straight first.
So I go water first, and now here's the downside to ice, and I'm not going to ever criticize the way you're drinking it. I'm going to give you the science behind it. When I put something cold, I'm an old athlete. I played hockey and soccer for years and years and years, and my knees X-rays will show it. So when I get home at night after playing with my kids, I put a bag of ice on my knees and I numb the pain, and I numb my knees down and I ice them down, and I increase my circulation. When I put when I put something cold on my palate, I'm effectively doing the same thing. I'm chilling and numbing my palate, which means I'm limiting the amount of receptors that I have available to my palate and profile. So while I do not love ice on my whiskey because I think it limits the experience of the whiskey, I completely understand why someone would do it. Again, it numbs the palate. It limits the palate exposure to the whiskey itself.
Well, like I said, I only do it with the high octanes, right? For the 115s, they tend to.
And again, please don't think in any way that I'm judging the way you experience
just like,
the whiskey.
Like my cousin Phil said, the Drive Time DJ 105.1 Alt Rock in Louisville, Kentucky.
There you go. Cousin Phil.
He's the same way. I mean, we do it the same. He brings a bottle up that we haven't had, and my brother and I, we always like, all right, we're doing the first one like this, and then I'll throw ice in it afterwards. We always make sure. I taste this stuff straight.
I will always recommend for anybody who likes ice on their whiskey, always do the big block. Buy a couple ice molds.
Yeah, the big block.
Do the big block of whiskey, and there's a reason for it. It melts slower, first and foremost. Which means you're diluting your whiskey at a slower pace, but you're still getting that chilled effect, that kind of numbing effect of the whiskey. The other way you could experience it and have kind of the same effect as ice and cooling it down is throw your whiskey in the freezer for a couple hours.
I've done that. I'm not scared of that.
No, and it's nothing. There's nothing bad about it. It's
put whiskey in the cooler.
Chills it down a little bit, numbs the palate a little bit, and if you don't like that high proof, if that high proof is rough on the palate or rough on your finish, and that's totally reasonable. That chilling effect of just putting it in the freezer, not taking anything, not putting any water or ice on it, will definitely mellow that back out for you and really roll it back.
Just this weekend, I'm anti-Irish whiskey right now. I don't know, just a phase of mine.
Really?
Just not into it.
Okay, hang on. Are you anti-Irish whiskey? Are you anti single pot still whiskey? Are you anti triple distilled Irish whiskey?
I'm just not into the flavor of Irish whiskey right now.
All right.
But I have discovered.
Fighting guys,
I know. Don't come across the table at me. But there is a delicious Tullamore Dew rum cask aged that you can't find anymore.
Really?
That my buddy pulled one out, and during COVID we drank crap out of that stuff. But we always would put it in the in the same ice water that our Miller High Lifes were in, then pull it out and just sip on it straight, and it was damn delicious.
Really?
I'll be honest with you.
The turquoise label.
We don't have anything branded right now this way, but I am convinced that the best way to finish whiskey is in a Caribbean rum cask. If you don't believe me, try Angel's Envy Rye.
Oh yeah.
If you don't
Basil
believe me,
Hayden rye.
try Basil Hayden Rye. If you don't believe me, try Belvini Caribbean
Well, the
cask.
Basil Hayden is port barrels, right? That's port barrels.
Basil Hayden has.
They do have a Caribbean rum one. It's the blue label.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is a
which one.
Caribbean rum one.
But is that rye or is that?
I don't know if it's rye
Bourbon.
or not. I think it's bourbon. The rye is the one it's the port barrels, and that's
Okay.
just dangerously delicious to drink straight.
Port
See,
barrels are ridiculous as well. Yeah,
the-
they're all.
The funny thing about the Tullamore
They're
Dew,
sherry casks. I can't remember which one of those.
I had that, and I was like, "Oh, I can use this as a mixer."
Oh, I love
didn't.
it.
I didn't like it.
Oh, I
So
at
love
now,
it.
all.
was that Tully?
The Tullamore Dew with the
turquoise
Caribbean-
label,
Oh, okay.
the Caribbean rum
Caribbean-
cask.
yeah.
I find that to be the most drinkable of
I-
the dishes.
My wife
I
who
can't do
does not.
Jameson anymore.
My wife who does not drink whiskey will sit and drink Angel's Envy Rye straight.
Oh, my father, Augie Senior, the big guy.
The big
I
guy.
introduced him to rye whiskeys. Old
Okay.
Forester, Wild Turkey, and Woodford Reserve ryes, and that's his jam now.
Mm.
He wants ryes.
I'm gonna go off program here, but have you had a chance to get any of the Castle of the Keys Redemption series Rise?
I have not. I know that I
Yes.
have not.
All right,
Yes.
You probably got a hold of that stuff.
We
Cousin
did.
Phil, you have a mission. It is to drive to the Castle and Key Distillery just south of Versailles. By the way, it is pronounced Versailles, not Versailles. They get very picky about that. But that Redemption Rye,
It can't change how we were raised, man.
There was
fine.
what was it? Evan up at AB Liquors had a barrel pick of that.
Oh, did he?
The Redemption Rye.
Oh,
Oy, oy, oy. Matt and I, we did it. We did an episode where it was we were doing recipes with ryes, and yeah, that bottle didn't make it through because it was delish.
It's dangerous.
It was gorgeous.
it's scary good. I think they're on series 3 of the Redemption series now.
Yeah.
And I picked up bottles 1 and 2 when I was down at Castle and Key.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful whiskey.
Do we want to jump ahead now to your
Yeah,
rye,
no,
which is one of my favorite products?
Let's
that you
let's
guys
jump
make.
into it. Right. So this is our first new mash bill that we've released since 1870.
All right, because everything else is 70,
72,
10, and
72, 18, 10, 72% corn,
72.
so 18% rye, 10% barley.
10% barley.
All right, I was at
And-
70, 72.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right, go
No,
ahead.
you're right. No,
Don't miss the hook.
do you guys know? Do you guys know why we keep the 10% barley in the whiskey?
Don't know.
Has anybody done the science with you? Well, we'll do
No,
a little
yeah.
science
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
with Brian
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Forester. Barley reduces.
I have a master degree in science.
He's looking for the small batch. He's hunting for more.
Yeah.
Castle and Key.
Awesome. So once it's crushed down and ready to go and processed properly, barley releases something called an alpha amylase enzyme, and that alpha amylase enzyme is what creates the sugar that yeast feeds on. Without that, you have to introduce an artificial enzyme into your whiskey to create the sugars that the yeast feed on. So almost everybody, and I can't think of anybody that doesn't anymore, but almost everybody uses a minimum of 5% barley so that they don't have to introduce artificial enzymes for the yeast to feed on, because it can become tricky with those enzymes, turning or not producing the
Yeah,
right.
I'm a wine
sweetness.
maker. I make wine, and we talk about those boosters.
I just
put in,
see
and
them in
I
there
avoid
going.
them. Like, I'd rather have a less than wine than put those in there.
Yeah,
Barley's in there going renew. Sorry. there's a man who's seen
All
Logan's
right.
run. All right.
All right. So we so this is our first new mash bill since 1870. So 144 years or so when we started producing this.
All right. What's the monster mash here?
This is going to be 65, 25, 10.
Okay.
So 65% rye, 25% corn, 10% barley, making us keeping us a little bit on the low end of the rye mash bills. We're not going to be one of those high end high
High rye,
ryes.
yeah.
We're going to be a lower rye. We're going to keep that sweetness. We're going to keep all the rye profile and flavor notes that you really want to have in a rye, but we're going to balance it out with a nice sweetness in the mash bill. It's going to, oh, here, please take your
Yeah, I'm just
I
looking
like
at the
the
color.
pores.
I'm looking at the
My
color.
girl.
it's got a nice darkness
It
to it.
is. It is dark. Yeah.
It's this is obviously not a small batch product. This is a large batch product.
Okay.
We do have releasing periodically. We've released a couple of single barrel strength rye picks, everyday barrel picks, or everyday barrel releases. We had, I don't know, 80, 90 cases come into Michigan last year, and we're hoping for a few more this year. But but for the most part, our rye mash bill or our rye is just our rye. It's a really nice balance.
Yeah, this here is a product that I can vouch for, that I consume, and that my father consumes, and that this is
consume as quantities.
You were talking about like the only wrong way is the way you don't like it.
Right.
This again, 100 proof rye you can get away from yourself. Your night can change if you're drinking this the wrong way
100%.
or you're too much. I love this with a light ginger ale, like a diet ginger ale. Like a light Verner's, prefer.
Now, see, I like, because rye has this really great, I keep coming back to the word peppery, but I think that's accurate. A really great peppery and a spice quality to it. I really like it with ginger beer. So,
I love a Kentucky Mule, but there's so many consistencies of ginger beer. They're so weird and so different.
It's true, and so I have one that I like, and I won't do a brand drop. But
mine too.
Find the one that you like.
It's mine too.
Well, I don't.
Sure, yeah.
I don't like a hot ginger. I don't like. I like a bite, but I don't want a hot ginger.
No one gets a hot ginger unless you look for a hot ginger. You got to know which ones are actually hot, which ones are not just sugar burn.
And if you grab the wrong product,
you're not going to be happy. Super sugary. Yeah.
So I have my ginger beer, and I keep about a case in the cooler at all times because mules on the patio are fantastic. But this is really just a fantastic product, and it really captures that rye quality to it with the flavor profile, and then again the mixability. As with all of our lower marks, the mixability is just there.
And do not look down on this product because you can get it at Meijer or Kroger. No, the price point is great. It's
am I getting
delicious
bark in this? I'm getting
bark.
Yeah, it's just
probably.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I put this one on the nose and actually tasted. So you'll have to give me a second. To
no, I'm just.
Oh yeah, sure.
Letting the dogs out.
Woof. Yeah, I was like getting like off the first couple of sniffs. I was like, "What's that? It's a
I apologize
barky
for that
kind of thing."
No, just a little bit of. Yeah, there's it's a nice floral. It's a nice kind of earthy flavor note, right on the nose there.
So, and that's the thing. I'm very susceptible to the power of suggestion. So I wanted to say it before anybody else. So I want to sniff it and say it and try to get a couple of words before people say things, because I'm very susceptible to the power of suggestion.
Well,
when it comes to this stuff,
we
have to be. We got to be told we're smelling. We have day jobs.
Something
that aren't
else
this.
too.
Well,
our day job isn't this. So
we talk about this all the time.
I try, but then they're like, "Mr. Flanagan, it's sixth period. You're a little drunk." I'm like, "Well, okay, it's movie day. Shut up."
Be quiet and watch Terminator.
Yes, Terminator. Yeah.
Well, listen,
it's a history movie.
Graduated from CC, so
yeah. 12 years Catholic school too. Cheers, brother.
12
years hard time.
8 years of Catholic school. But,
there we
go. There we go.
8 years Catholic school.
It's the last week of the semester was just sit and wait for the clock to tick. Anyway, but the thing with you mentioned being powerful susceptible to the power of suggestion.
Yeah.
That's really true of everybody, and I've discovered this the more and more I've done larger in-person events. I always used to be I'm not going to lead you. I'm not going to tell you where to go. I'm not going to try to guide you on this journey. I'm going to let you experience this journey for yourself. I have now come around to this idea that I've spent the better part of 10 years now training myself through different tricks of the trade, oils and smellings and education and brand knowledge and immersion into different whiskeys. And it's kind of stupid for me to keep that information to myself.
That's what you're there for. That's what you're here. That's why you're here.
I want people to experience it, but I want them to know that they're right. So a lot of times people will be hesitant, and I listen. I love people who speak in descriptors, and I find this is more true with women than men. I was doing it. I'll tell this quick story. I was doing a tasting with a women's group. This is probably about 4 years ago or so, and they were, and most of them were very knowledgeable bourbon consumers. They were whiskey consumers. They were very knowledgeable, and they were boom, and here's this, and here's this, and here's this. I'm going, yes, you're right, and this and that.
Perfect. That's your wheelhouse.
Having a great conversation. And this woman in the corner, she pipes up and she goes, God, this just smells like my grandma's purse. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Werther's Originals and leather.
100% it was Werther's Original and leather.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, my grandma used to carry these candies in her purse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Werther's you're smelling butterscotch, caramel, and leather. That's what you're smelling. And every one of those things is right, but what your descriptor was so much more friendly and inviting than butterscotch, caramel, and leather. The inside of grandma's purse is so much more of an enjoyable way to describe your whiskey.
There was the owner of a spirits company that said, the last time I did a podcast with you, said we're shooting for Werther's Original. That's all we want our spirit to taste like.
Sure,
that was
like,
it.
All right, that's a thing. And the bottle's sitting over there. We can let you try it on the way out. But it's and they nailed it.
Yeah, but those people.
But it's the full note. It's the full goal, not just a note you catch.
Yeah, no,
amongst other things.
You look at any of these whiskeys, and I we've done with Woodford Reserve, they've done the science, and there's about 212 different profiles, different notes available for discovery in the Woodford Reserve. Now, if you can name all 212 of them, you are a way better man than any person.
And you start talking about them, you probably lose a consumer. You start talking about it,
But what's fun about that is I can open a conversation with. I can open a conversation where there's 212 notes. Nothing you find is wrong.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, then, right.
Coffee, yep, it's there.
Yeah.
Cocoa beans, yep, there. Sure. Butterscotch, sure, there. Leather, earth, all there.
So I'm getting like
cousin Phil's in. He's going Thursday.
Go cousin Phil
before work. Yeah.
So I'm getting in this rye. I'm getting a candy, but it's I want to say juicy fruit, but it's not juicy fruit. It's like juicy fruit's cousin.
Yeah, it's the cinnamon version of it.
Yeah, it's can. There's a little bit of candy.
The cinnamon version of juicy fruit isn't juicy.
Big Red.
That's Big Red.
Thank you. I couldn't come up with Big Red to save my life.
No,
you started talking about Beekmans and everything else.
No, I'm not. It's not cinnamony, but it's just. Slightly,
I get a lot of cinnamon.
It's slightly off from. I'm getting that barky thing where the first time I smell it, and then. It's candy, but it's something candy.
So, Jamie, you're doing the host's biggest mistake.
Plus,
you double poured that.
Wow.
Yeah, you double
poured
that.
Not just doubled.
I did. I haven't even
That's
sipped
a full pour.
I haven't even sipped this one yet.
I mean, we're not quite to the label on the Glencairn.
And
we got close.
Yeah, we got close.
and we're only 6 of the 7 in. So.
Well, that's my fault. I jumped to my favorite. I really wanted.
You distracted me. It's fine.
Well, rye came up. And we were talking about rye whiskey, and this is like
there's green. There's green on the taste.
It's a fave. So.
There's green on the taste. There's something fresh.
Lots of earth.
Yeah. There's freshy, greeny.
I truly enjoy this rye.
Are we over time, or can we keep drinking?
Oh, we're good.
Keep drinking. All right. Let's continue, sir.
Well,
let's get back on track, back on the right track.
Onward and backwards, as the case may be here. So we're gonna slip into our 86 proof here, and again. This is the beautiful thing about this bottle is its consistency.
This is a consistent bottle that I've owned and that I'm a fan of.
If you have a back bar and you like bourbon spirits, I don't care if you're talking about mules or if you're talking about more complex things like Kentucky Bucks,
even on my straight sipping.
Sure,
yeah.
No, I'm talking, but this is everybody's. This should be everybody's do everything bourbon. Mm-hmm. You can sip it. You can put it on rocks. You can put it in a cocktail. And it is overall outstanding from beginning to end, but it's outstanding from beginning to end at a $20 price point.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's.
Now I remember when the Old Forester label was considered like, that's some weird, strange stuff. Like when my dad was, buying, go to the liquor store when there weren't a lot of options. Old Forester was on the shelf,
sure,
but none of these were on the shelf. It was just that, and was like, what is that stuff?
Well, and it was on the bottom, and it was dusty. And
it was dusty on the bottom,
and it was sitting next to Weller.
It was
because we were at the same price point for most of our lives,
and nobody ever wanted them.
And nobody wanted them,
and now
nobody wanted them.
And now the secret's gotten out.
Yeah,
and Weller moved their price up. They doubled the price of their OSR,
at least,
and they've created a marketplace for theirs. And again, this is the difference to me, and the just the credibility of the Brown family, and why I love going to work every day, working for this group of people, is that the Brown family truly wants their product drank could we charge $40 for this bottle and not have any guilty conscience about it?
Sure.
Yes, we could. Absolutely,
could.
all day long.
Yeah.
We could do that, and we would double our profits on the bottle or more, and we would sell exactly as many bottles as we do today. But our whiskey is available to everybody. It's available at an affordable price. And it's just one of the things I respect about the family so much is that they're really making their whiskey available to anybody who wants to drink their whiskey.
Well, jumping back to the 86 after
Sure.
going from the 1920 and then doing the rye, sweet.
Yes.
It's very
Now
sweet.
you're back into bourbon.
It's
You're
very,
back
very-
into
yeah.
what
Yeah.
we think of when we think of bourbon.
Yes.
Butterscotch, caramel, vanilla, light cinnamon, little bit of pepper, a little bit of spice, but all those big sticky sweet notes are right back on your palate now.
Yeah. I wouldn't even go so far as sticky sweet. It's just
sweetness.
sweet. It's
Just
sweet,
sweetness.
sweet. It's just
And you can notice
sweet.
mm-hmm. All of a sudden we're quoting King Bee's songs.
Well, it'll
that's
happen.
Actually, Jack Harlow, but okay.
Oh, fair fun.
and if you go back, and it's interesting because we just did like 100 to 86 variations, so just a 14 proof. Coming back, it's like, whoa, that's really thin on the palate. But then when you do the swirl and watch, I mean, even with this large batch,
You saw me doing that. I was
still
like
got
swirling. I'm like,
legs.
I think the legs are
there's
stronger
a little
than
bit of
the
viscosity on this one.
I
even
think the
though it
legs
had a
on this
lighter
are
taste.
stronger than
Yeah.
the rye.
There's a lot of balance, a lot of nose, a lot of oil, a lot of all those characteristics, but the flavor profile on the tongue is just, it feels almost light.
With this oiling, it'll hold up in a mix.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Viscosity matters.
Yeah.
Viscosity is how you create cocktails. We have a
Cocktails and motor oil.
a-
That's where you hear the word viscosity.
That's it.
That's it.
we have a gin in our portfolio that prides itself on being 90 proof with the highest viscosity that you can create in a gin because it stands up to all cocktails. It's a cocktail maker's gin. This is along the same idea that if you have
Another
something,
podcast. We have a gin. They got to do a gin one now.
oh, let's do a gin cocktail.
We got to do the
podcast.
whole
I'll bring
Scotch.
in-
We do
I'll-
the Scotch 3-sip rule crap. We got to do all kinds of stuff.
The Scotch 3-sip rule really
Seriously.
only applies to. Well, it applies to all of it.
Ah.
It really only applies to peated whiskey.
Another 40 minutes somewhere else.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
time.
Listen,
You want to? You book the next
No,
couple
we're
weeks?
good, man.
I'm
I just-
truly,
the next couple
truly,
weeks, can we-
truly not. Let's.
Okay.
I'm pounding on the table for emphasis. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But
In.
Scotch gin cocktail night. I'll bring all the mixers. We'll just make some fun cocktails. We'll make some fun gin
Sure.
cocktails.
We know a couple. We know some bartenders, but
Would you imagine?
I have
Yeah.
no. We bring a
That sounds
bartender
like
to
that
mix
would
it up.
sound like an outside the studio type.
Yeah,
should
we
do
could
that
do
at
it in a
we should-
bar.
yeah, do that in a
or
bar.
on a like a home bar somewhere.
Yeah, just a bigger space.
I don't know. I love the background noises of tables of forks
I love
clinking on plates. And,
yeah.
The
The
ambient
glasses
noise is great for a
clinking
podcast.
together and
We've done a few at Whiskey in the Jar and Hamtramck, and they've come out.
good times.
The ambient noise of a dive bar
Mhm.
is
Oh,
pretty great.
it's fantastic.
Here's
Fights and
the
side by
occasional
side.
swearing.
F-bomb dropping off as they're
Yes.
escorted out of the front door. No,
Hey,
it's good
we're
times.
not regulated by
Sidebar. I
Communications.
just the wedding. because I DJ weddings and parties and stuff like
Fun
that.
times.
The wedding I did this weekend. The kids they live like 2-3 doors down from Whiskey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
but they're not
wonderful.
regulars. They're not regulars.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
that's
they're
their fault.
young though.
That's their
They're-
fault.
They're young, but they came into like a Johnny Thunders song. I'm like, you're so whiskey people. You know?
We're talking
Why
about
don't
Whiskey
you
in the
go to
Jar
that-
and Hamtramck.
Why don't
the
you go to
little
that place? Anyway, sorry.
crap hole that I worked at for 15 years?
Total.
Excellent.
It is. It's
Our Magnum PI party's coming up.
yes.
I forgot to plug that because that's one of the reasons I come on this podcast. To be the 9th one Magnum PI
ninth
party. Mhm.
So
Big
I'd have to
fundraiser.
shave most of the beard to have.
All you
the
gotta
reason I
do-
have facial hair right now is because I'm
Because you're
getting
getting ready for
I'm
your
getting
Magnum
ready for
PI
the, it's
party.
all you
August
gotta
20th.
do is wear some really tight khaki shorts, and you are in.
A
Well,
Hawaiian
and a
shirt.
Detroit Tigers
And
hat.
And a
tiger
Hawaiian
hat.
shirt. and a
It's
tiger
the
hat.
easiest costume you can have.
It
right?
truly is.
It is.
It is a Tiger's hat,
I'm
a
like
Hawaiian shirt.
I'd be like retired Magnum
And
PI
tight,
with a full
yes,
Well,
and tight shorts.
You can just trim it down low. Sometimes it's good to
beard. I
refresh.
don't know if I could. I
Refresh
think
it.
my wife might actually fight me
Okay.
in
well,
my sleep.
I mean,
when
if you
she's
have
not.
kids, they'd be scared of you.
They're old enough now. They've seen me shave it down a couple times.
Okay.
There was once where, that's a different story.
Anyway.
All right,
It's fine.
fair enough.
But
Um,
it is a fundraiser for Kirk Gibson's Parkinson's Foundation and the Hero Foundation. They're splitting the money this year
Okay.
because Mikey lost his dad to Parkinson's recently
Mm.
at age
Yes.
89. So, but hey, it's a great event. It's at a dive bar in Hamtramck,
Mhm.
and we have shirts and we sell the mustaches for $5 a piece if you don't have one. we raised a couple grand, like $2-3 grand on
Yeah, yeah.
$5 raffle tickets.
Yep.
That's
And
awesome.
people
It's a nice night.
our friends in the liquor distribution world take care of us and give us things to put in baskets.
We make
Just
baskets.
saying. They give us swag and stuff and glasses and things like that we build up, and we don't do any booze in it. All eyes blinking.
Yeah. Blink,
But
blink twice if you're in trouble.
But we have
Blink twice
great
if you need
things. Like we have chefs that give us a lot of chef tables we get from different restaurants in Detroit that take care of us.
That's awesome.
And that's amazing. That's a really great thing. Like the Elephant Room always takes care of us. Blake's Hard Cider is the presenting sponsor.
Good
But
people up at Blake's.
yeah, they're wonderful. They come here and they've been good with us here. So we do not have a liquor sponsor yet.
No, hey, you never know.
It was,
Never
it
know.
was Bacardi last time, but we're open.
Never know what happens.
Same.
You're intentionally avoiding eye contact. It's weird.
But
It's uncomfortable.
it shouldn't be. But But we
No, absolutely.
but at a Hawaii themed party, it's a different
That's good.
spirit.
Yeah, we
I
don't
got a
really
wedding.
have
I
we
got a
really don't
wedding
have
already.
a rum or
Yeah, if you represent a rum, we could tag in. But the
Just-
Bacardi people have been good to us. It's going to end up being Bacardi again.
I would
But,
imagine they're a good
yes.
group of folks.
But we would love to have some of these glasses in
So-
our baskets to
So
represent.
yeah.
We're happy to represent. I don't know. We'll discuss
So-
things like next week sometime.
All right, so Brian, there's so you got the Old Forester 100 proof, and you have the 1897 bottled and bond,
Sure.
which would be
100 proof.
100 proof. What's the difference? You're just confusing me, man.
Well, what I like to do is make things as complicated
That's
as
because
possible.
you've been drinking, Jamie. It's only because you've been drinking.
Listen, I waited until this late to spring on you, hoping you weren't going to notice.
All right, fair play.
No, so
It's because of the screw top.
it is because of the screw top.
Oh, fair play.
The cork matters. Screw top matters. It doesn't matter at all.
No.
What we're dealing with here is I mentioned the phrase small batch earlier when talking about our Whiskey Row series.
Okay.
That's the 1870, 1897.
Do you call these the
1920.
Whiskey World Series?
This is the Whiskey Row series.
Row.
Whiskey Row.
I thought it was like
So
Whiskey
we-
World Series. I go,
we
I
were-
like that.
We refer to Main Street in downtown Louisville as Whiskey Row.
Okay.
You've got us, you've got Evan Williams, you've got 2 or 3 others right along the row there. And we are kind of the originators of the Bourbon Trail. We're some of the first truly established whiskeys.
I'm
in
sure they
Louisville.
all get together and fist fight and Twitter battle over this
they-
stuff.
No. we go Anchorman style. We've got pitchforks and
Oh,
grenades.
Right.
It escalates
I love
quickly.
that.
Don't forget about
It escalates quickly.
CBC.
Things
don't
gotta
forget
happen
about Heaven Hill.
That's it.
We're here too.
That's it.
Spanish language channel.
I was trying to think who the public television of the whiskey world would be. I
Right,
can't
right,
think of who it might
right,
be. Anyway,
Yeah.
but no, we
The
so
Three
we
brothers. Yeah.
we call
Yeah,
it
those Tennessee guys.
it probably is the Tennessee. guy. We
Big rep and big old beards. Yeah.
but we have we would refer to generally as Whiskey Row, that Main
Yeah,
Street starts with Louisville. That actually starts with us. We're the first ones at 115 now North Main Street. So the story we haven't told is that about 8 years ish ago, Campbell Brown became the president of Old Forester and decided to move us back home and put us back on Main Street. So he was actually able to buy his great granddad's old property of 117 North Main Street and its adjacent building of 115 North Main Street. So 115 and 117 became us because of the way that Kentucky of Louisville works when creating addresses. It is we take the lower address, not the higher address. So we are now 115 North Main Street, even though we occupy what was once 15 and 117 North Main Street. So we are actually in our old property. There's some really cool pictures hanging up around the
Nice.
facility
That's brilliant.
of George and Owsley and Dr. Forrester hanging out in the office buildings that we completely restored back to their 1870, 1880 look and feel. So it's really, really very cool. We have a lot of history within our distillery, and we are the only distillery that I know of that actually has a mini cooperage built into our distillery as well. One of the things I didn't talk about tonight that I'm going to talk about real quick, and then you guys can cut me off and we'll move on to the Forster 100.
We're here to hear you talk.
That's it. I'm chopping.
No one wants to hear
at this
me
point,
talk.
I'm
He's
chopping
got-
us into two already.
He's
so
got
we're
the
good.
DJ voice, and I'm just here to talk.
No, you got some nice pipes.
So-
Rub your
So-
chest and see you got nice pipes.
Some
All right, fair
menthol.
play.
Yeah, there we go. So we have so Brown Forman is the only major supplier that owns their own cooperage. We own our own cooperages. We own 2 of them. In fact, we have one just outside of Atlanta and we have one in Louisville, Kentucky. This means that for us, what does this mean to our consumer? What does this mean for us? For our consumer, it means that we control everything from grain to glass.
Literally everything.
Literally
yes.
everything.
Not everybody. A lot of people say that, but not everybody does.
But we actually control it, and we have employed science. We have, and Brown Forman, for those who are not familiar, is an incredibly eco-aware company. Our Finlandia vodka, which is a small vodka in the United States.
So it's not from Finland; it's from Louisville.
No, very far. So our Finlandia vodka is a 3 million case a year vodka. It's not huge here, but it's huge the rest of the world. Is part of the 1% for the Planet coalition. Our Slane Irish whiskey, which you mentioned, you're kind of out on Irish whiskeys. This is a triple casked Irish whiskey.
I ain't afraid of Finlandia. I'll tell you that. I've had plenty of a Finlandia.
I'm going to convert you on the Slane.
We had some Slane on the. I think it's all right. We got a bar cart here in the Man Cave suite of the
Scotch. The Scotch lesson
like
where we have to be in a bigger space. I want in on that. Tag me in on that podcast too.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about the Slane whiskey.
The Slane Irish whiskey is beautiful. It's a triple cask.
Yes.
But we are down to 3% carbon footprint. Only 3% of our usage is not reduced, reused, or recycled back into the world. We are very eco-conscious. We're very eco-friendly. We're very eco-aware. We have a team of ecologists who go out into the woods and the properties that we own to pull down the white oaks to make sure the canopy is not going to be disrupted, to make sure that we're going to continue to be able to grow trees there, to make sure we're not damaging the environment, to make sure we're not damaging homesteads, to make sure we're not changing migration patterns, any of those things.
There's no cost involved in any of that, is there?
It's just it's free.
It's the right thing to do.
It's also protecting the integrity of your product and the water and everything that you use.
Well, exactly. So if we
just wipe our butts with the planet and throw it away,
you change the water flow, the acidity of the water, the quality of the barrels that you're charring, all that stuff.
And
I love that you guys are doing that.
So we have our own cooperages, and I'll tell everybody's seen a distillery tour. If you're listening to this, you've probably been on at least one distillery tour in your life. You've been on every distillery tour in your life. I mean, we've seen one distillery tour to varying degrees. It's a pot still, or it's a column still, or it's whatever. You've been on every distillery tour.
Does it count the one in my garage or no?
Probably.
Okay. It's a column.
It's the same thing. It's heat. It's alcohol evaporating faster than water. It's coming down in a copper pipe. It's hitting the thing and creating
Sheriff,
alcohol.
I'm kidding, Sheriff.
I see. Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
Nothing.
But the really cool thing about our cooperages is watching the coopers create. This is a true art form.
Yeah.
These guys. So there's two things that happen. Number one, you walk into the cooperage and you start seeing. It doesn't matter, but you walk into the cooperage, you start seeing the coopers repairing barrels. So these are things that had problems at the line, and maybe it's 5% of the barrels that come through, and that number is important to think about for just a second. 5% of the barrels come to the coopers for repair or reseal.
Okay.
Now, when you're making a bourbon barrel, here are the things that you cannot have. Anything. You can have wood, and you can have steel outside. That's it.
Yeah.
No wax, no honey, no nothing, no nails, no nothing driving through the wood. There
is a no wax rule.
There isn't.
I used to think you were allowed beeswax or something. There was like
nothing.
I'm big into waxing myself.
Well, only on the chest.
That's different.
Jamie's been drinking. Jamie's been drinking.
All right.
So, but you're not.
You can tell.
He's oversharing.
It'll happen. But when you're watching these coopers go through this process of pulling these barrels apart, finding the staves, resealing them, repopping the rings on, all that stuff, it's fascinating. And then you go around the corner and you actually watch the coopers raise a barrel. You don't build barrels, you raise barrels. You're watching the coopers raise a barrel, and at the beginning of the door when you walk in, there's a clock, and it's how long those coopers have been on shift. There's two of them working in the back, and how many barrels they've raised. By the end of an 8-hour shift, those two coopers will have raised 350 barrels or more.
Many crickets.
No one's used that phrase since 1981.
Probably 83, but fine.
I'm going back 100.
I am going to grab a sniff of my favorite one that I've had today.
Oh, please. Yes, the 1910.
We
haven't done this one yet. The 100.
We
haven't done the 100 yet.
We haven't done the 100 yet.
I have personally had it.
Yep.
So you're going back to the 1910.
Going back to the one like
bailing on.
This is going to be the last of mine.
Fair play.
Damn it! All right, I'll play the game.
No. Jump the line. It's fine.
I thought I was gonna,
Just jump the broom. Go ahead.
I thought
No.
we were done. I thought I was gonna toast this out.
Listen,
No, we're
I'm not going
good,
to stop
man.
talking for a while. I apologize.
No,
No,
hell yeah.
so we have these Coopers, and these Coopers are creating our product, and it's allowing us to control from the beginning to the end of what we do. We
love
are
that.
we are all the way in control of our product, and we're one of the few companies who can truly say that. Now, anybody can send a barrel back that doesn't meet their qualifications or specifications or what have you. Anybody can regulate their time and their consistency and all of those things to their chars, and people will love to talk about the Dragon scale, or what's your rating, or what's your whatever. We use time. We don't use any kind of
Dragon
weird
scale,
rating.
yeah.
Well, I mean, people,
Right, yeah, I know.
everybody's got a different.
They got to come up with
Sure,
they got to
what's
come
the
up with
chart?
something
Yeah.
to separate, right?
right.
You got to come for a reason to
Oh, is that
rank.
what the Dragon scale is?
it's just a
Okay, now
reason-
it just dawned on me. All right, fair play.
So we don't use.
I'm 12.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good.
So we don't use any of that stuff. We use, honest to God, time. We just
Right.
it's time. We're toasting for this long. We're charring for this long.
Right.
Well,
and then that's
that's what master distillers and all these guys are for, right?
exactly.
These people that
They have
they are the
determined-
scientists. They know what they're doing and what it's supposed to taste like after so much time, and they get it right, and then they blend it, which you're allowed to do that in some cases here
Well,
to make it taste the same.
you can
consistently.
blend anything.
Yeah, you can blend anything.
because our mash bill doesn't change.
Right.
So we're just picking barrels from different places.
Right. So that's
pushing
how
them
you
together.
get consistent taste, consistent flavor, and that's how you build loyalty.
Mhm.
And that's what you're working for. And that's why you have professional drinkers who do this. And that's what they are.
Yeah, yeah.
They're professional, whiskey tasters. What are they
Nosologists?
called? There's a name for that? What's it called?
Nosologists?
Alcoholic?
Blenders?
No.
Blenders.
I'm sorry. No, we have the
blenders.
That's
Master
Matt.
blenders?
He's not here.
So you
Sorry.
but here's a big the big
Master
news at
blenders.
Old Forester. Your master blender left you guys, and she was like a rock
Master
star.
taster.
She was a master taster.
Master Taster. Yeah,
Fair
Jackie
play.
Zykan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Different than what you are.
So she was. I'm a master
master-
blaster.
No, okay. That's
All right,
no
fair
different.
play.
No,
Okay.
no, Jackie. Yeah, Jackie left us. She went on to a new project.
Yeah.
I believe her last day was January 1st.
Yeah. So how does that impact Old Forester? You got to find a new rock star, right?
I mean, ideally, in a
Yeah.
perfect world, it's a 150-year-old company,
Yeah, yeah.
and I love Jackie, and I loved listening to her speak.
She ain't the
Yeah.
first rock star. She ain't gonna be the last one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't mean that. I mean that's in zero disrespect. She's incredible,
Yeah, yeah.
and I can't wait to be.
Cousin Phil was at the Kentucky Derby with her.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She was the best.
She
So-
still is the best,
She-
and I'm not. We're not writing an obituary.
No, no.
But she's.
But I mean, the
can't wait to
impact
get-
the impact on the company is like you need. It's.
we've got some incredible people. I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about our master distiller Chris Morris, 40 years in the industry.
Yeah.
The master distiller for Woodford Reserve, Cooper's Craft, Old Forester, at one time Early Times. And by the way, if you're ever looking for a $25 bottle that's going to knock your socks off, try the Early Times bottled and bond.
Really?
You will never recover.
Can we get
Okay.
that here? Well,
Yes.
never
Yeah,
recovering is not what I want to hear
No, I'm just saying
from the
you will,
spirit that I'm enjoying.
you will
Enjoy.
you will forever be mad about spending more than $30 on a bottle of whiskey.
Well,
Fair play, fair
I'm
play.
already at that level. I
Yeah.
am at the $30 to $40. That's why I tout your
Yeah.
rye. I enjoy it. So
Early Times bottled and bond.
Okay.
It's a light blue label. It says Early Times on it. Old script.
all right.
It's
Early Times.
but you're not going to get those. You're not going to get those people who transcend a business. Everybody is different. There was a young woman who, and
Sure.
this is tantamount to the point. There was a woman who was the first master distiller at Castle and Key,
Mhm.
and she's moved on to other brands since then. It wasn't a fit for her
Sure.
for whatever reason, and I think her products are great. I think she's an incredible master distiller, but she's not the lifeblood of the. Nobody is the lifeblood of the business, and you get.
I hate
you
to
can-
use the cliche, but everybody's replaceable.
Well, and I don't want anybody.
Things
to
are
think, and I
life
don't,
is going to go on.
but I don't
right?
want anybody
You
to
got
think
to,
they're
though.
replaceable. I
No,
think
you
we-
never
we-
do.
We
But
value every person that comes through, and everybody contributes to the story. Without Jackie's,
And the story continues.
without Jackie's
there could be a
icon,
new
we
flavor.
don't have 1910 and 1920. That's
Well, there you
that's
go.
reality, right?
So the-
Well,
the-
my
so
crush on her just got a little deeper.
maybe
Well,
maybe the
it's
next
reasonable.
person person may make another
and,
thumbprint
and the
Right.
next thumbprint
onto
comes.
the
So you think about
Everybody's got their thumbprint.
it's very easy to think
There
about.
could be a 2022.
Think about Jack Daniels as a for instance. When Jeff Arnett left,
I try not to think about Jack
Oh,
Daniels.
you
I don't think about those college
Ooh,
headaches.
ooh,
I
you
don't
and
think
me
about those
we're gonna
those
fight. It's fine.
bathrooms. And
If
that
they
I
take the
threw up
headphones
in.
off, it's going to be a problem.
Uh,
No, but you think about when Jeff Arnett left.
Are you gonna
us.
ear slap me?
No, I was adjusting my glasses and I took
Yeah,
my
right,
headphones off.
right. He got a little aggressive there. No, but Jeff Arnett left during COVID, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?"
Yeah.
Jeff is the one who took us from Old Number 7 and Gentleman Jack to single barrel and single barrel rye and single barrel proof.
Fair enough. Okay.
And he created Jack Daniels as a premium whiskey.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Jeff Arnett left. Oh my gosh. Well, Chris Fletcher's come on.
Yeah.
Chris Fletcher is the first ever second generation master distiller of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And he has created the triple mash and the bonded, and he has released the
That was my
10-year,
point. There's
and
there
he
is
released the and not no one's saying, "Oh, who's
you're
Jeff Arnett?"
blessed with the
they're
legacy.
saying-
You're blessed with the legacy,
Yeah.
and you are hopefully granted an outstanding new product in the future.
And nothing and nothing but
There's
the
no
best
limits on
of
that.
all the endeavors.
There's no limits
Going
on
forward.
that. Yeah, everyone should be
Everyone
thrilled.
should
You're
be-
in a business that makes you happy.
Yeah. I
really.
when you step back and take a look at it, for God's sakes, we sell whiskey for a
It's,
living.
we're having fun and drinking whiskey.
How possibly mad can you be about somebody going someplace?
The
Right,
only
right,
thing better
right.
would be to be paid to do this job.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Wait,
You know.
hey,
whoops.
And we are. And hey,
Cheers.
cheers.
Bon Chevant.
All right. So answer the damn question, Brian.
Sorry.
What's the difference between the 100 proof and the bottle and bond?
See what happens is I get sidetracked easily.
No,
The 100
It's my fault.
No,
So,
no.
I talked
we
earlier
were
about-
having fun.
I talked earlier about small batch, and small
Yeah.
batch means 99 barrels or less.
Okay.
right.
Generally speaking, universally, that is our industry standard. Is a small batch is 99 barrels or less.
Mhm.
Our Old Forester small batches are significantly less than that, but
Mhm.
we'll call it 99 barrels or less. These are our 100 proof is a large batch bourbon,
Okay.
meaning that we're going to be plus 200 generally speaking.
Sure. Fair play.
On our 100 proof whiskey with our Old Forester 100 proof as opposed to our 1897, there's going to be it's not a standard because our standard is consistency, but there's going to be, we're able to take barrels that are lesser with barrels that are greater and blend them together because we're blending so many more together.
Sure.
We can take those barrels that, oh man, that just didn't age right, or oh, that tasted a little bit funky. We can drown that out with 25 barrels that are tasted fine. And because it's a large batch, we're able to manipulate that
Brian.
a little bit better.
That was extraordinarily honest and refreshing.
Well, that's like I said. I early on.
And just
I-
not
I-
and not and I
I
could
have
say
no
that about
problem-
the bourbon too. Dude, I think I just fell in love with you.
I have no
Uh,
problem with a blended
no,
whiskey.
seriously,
'cause I
that-
want
that-
that consistency in my flavor.
That was like
Yeah.
See, in most industry, business, government, politics, people are
Hey.
not that honest. I
Hey, your
I-
vote
I-
counted.
I
Your
applaud
vote
you.
counted. Okay.
I applaud you.
Well, and I think it's
I applaud that honesty.
I think transparency is
I love
important
that.
in the
Yeah.
product, but
And-
again, but the
I
thing
just-
is as I say that,
That's amazing.
grab a bottle of 100 proof from 5 years ago,
Right, right.
grab a bottle of 100 proof in 5 years, and they should taste the same.
So what's the profile difference between the Old Forester 100 proof and the Old Forester
I
1897?
think there's a lot less sweetness to our Old Forester 100 proof versus the
because
1897.
honest to God, at this point we've pounded
we're at
seven
we're at
different.
palate fatigue.
Yeah,
We have and again,
if I could try to sip the two right now,
So-
yeah,
if you get into the
we need to do a
generally
mini sode
fifth-
on just the two.
sometimes fifth, sometimes sixth, but
yeah,
by 6 you have achieved palate fatigue, and I don't care how much you drink.
Yeah.
You are everything's starting to come across the same on your palate. That's just
Mhm.
reality of
When
of
we jump
liquor.
from the 100 back to the 86,
You noticed a dramatic difference.
yeah,
because
yeah,
there
yeah.
was a dramatic difference.
but
to
right
be had.
now, yeah, and if I went from that 100 proof to that 100 proof,
You wouldn't know.
I would be at for the 7th and 8th taste.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult to come up with some horse shit to say. So
Well, but I think generally speaking, the one thing that this one doesn't have is the sweetness. It lacks a little bit of the sweetness,
okay,
a little bit of the butterscotch in the caramel,
all
but I
right.
think it turns the volume up pleasantly on the cinnamon, on the pepper, on the chocolate, on the earth. I think all of those things are turned up on this one, and this is what makes it both a great sipping whiskey,
Yeah,
but more importantly, it holds the cocktail.
You drink too much of that, you end up on the earth.
That's funny because I've purchased the 100 proof like 2 or 3 times. I'm a drunk. I brought that
You
2 or 3
just
different
caught up
times
to that one, didn't you?
for yeah, a little bit. It just dawned on me. Because it came with like the little jar of old fashioned syrup.
Sure. Yeah.
So the 100 proof, it was like, I was like, what am I gonna get? I want some, and it's like, this comes with the happy little.
I think I see one of
there
those.
is. It's on the on the bar
over there
cart.
behind
over there,
Oh,
yeah.
what do you got right there? That's an Old Forester old fashioned syrup. What do you know?
But
isn't it though?
But I did that, and I bought it because I was it swayed me to that to get it.
Well, and I'll tell you, so and it's available. It's available at some grocery stores, and but any liquor store can order it from Cana Distributors. But the old Forester old fashioned syrup uses Demamura rather than just using white sugar, simple syrup, compound, whatever. It is outstanding old fashioned syrup. Now,
It's nice.
I like to make my own. I like to have the grains of sugar in the bottom.
I do.
All of those things. But I love the Old Forester old fashioned syrup.
So it's just
it's
a tiny
just
little bottle.
yeah.
Sometimes it comes attached.
I think I should make myself a mini one right
you
now.
could probably.
I think it's a 2 ouncer, and I think you can make about 5. You can make about 4 or 5 cocktails out of that. It's very easy.
I do that. I do that all the time at home.
It's
we have
easy.
one in the studio here.
Make sure you put a couple of cubes on there for them. You don't want to be old fashioned without some cubes.
You guys aren't joining? If we cut this into 3 or 4 podcasts now.
I think we're close to 3.
Again, you asked a guy to come who talks for a living, and I apologize, guys.
No,
what do you apologize? We're going to cut the part of you apologizing out of the podcast.
Reasonable. Totally reasonable.
It stands up. All right, so that the Old Forester 100 proof. Well, it's God, I don't even know what you're doing there, brother.
Yeah. Oh, there's a little seal on there.
Yeah.
All right,
it's an actual syrup.
All right, yeah.
Oh no, you need.
I'll do one too.
You need like
I need
2/3
more
of.
than
You need like a third of an ounce. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's not bitters. I was treating it like bitters.
Right.
This
isn't a dash.
I used to be a bartender. You know,
I
treated it like bartenders.
You need. I like a good half an ounce of that syrup, and then use the. Well, I always use the 86, but you guys, we've been drinking all day, so
not all day. Maybe Jamie has. I haven't. Well, you do for a living. So
I do it for a living.
I was at City Hall all day, so I was not drinking.
Thank you, Congressman.
I was just complaining about my job.
But the Old Foresters are such. You need more than that. Just keep going.
I can't keep going.
That was less than an ounce.
Well, you're gonna look. I know how
he's got to go meet. You're meeting people.
I have to meet people. I have to meet a professional NFL football coach who's at a certain brewery right now. That I happen to.
There's only one professional team in Detroit.
No, he's not from Detroit.
Oh,
he's not.
It's not ours.
No, not our team.
Well, but these are, but again, very simple, very easy. The syrup itself is easy. I again, when I have the time, when I have the effort, much like yourself, I'm sure you want to make the cocktail yourself. You want to drown your sugar in some bitters, and you want to muddle it. You want to stir and all that stuff.
The bitters game is like crazy.
Oh, it is.
It's out of hand.
There's like raspberry bitters.
Well, it's a menu item now.
Orange
it's no longer just bitters.
I will
it's a
tell
menu
you
item.
Chocolate bitters.
There are 4 bitters that I will use on a regular basis.
And
all played, sir.
The orange one is the only one for me.
I was just hoping you'd keep going and ignore that.
Orange, Aztec chocolate, and walnut bitters. I use those 3 on walnut plus the original aromatic.
Yeah.
I use those.
Yeah, well, the original aromatic and then the blood orange.
Blood orange
ones
is great.
Are always lovely.
Try some cherry ones.
The Aztec chocolate and the walnut, dark walnut bitters.
Yep.
I love both of those. And I will use them for different seasonal cocktails.
Okay.
We have part of our cocktail expression lineup that's got the same looking label as those.
Yeah.
We have a smoked cinnamon bitters. And the smoked cinnamon bitters makes an incredible holiday
cinnamon bitter. Ooh.
It makes an incredible holiday cocktail. If you're
I have
looking
to put some of that in my mulled Christmas wine.
It's legit. It's for real.
So these are not. So this is like the 3rd or 4th one I bought of these, the old fashioned syrup that came with it, just because I enjoyed it so much. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that again, because it's not always out there. It's an occasional, depending on where you're buying.
Well, you go to Joe.
Yeah.
So Joe and Gio always carry that on their mixer shelf.
Oh, okay.
So I go to Big Tony at Wine Garden.
Oh, I love Big Tony.
Big Tony's a lifelong, not a lifelong.
Tony Batu is one of my
Tony
favorite
B.
human beings on the
Oh,
planet.
me too.
I love him.
We've
He's
done
like
this
a-
podcast out of the back of his building a couple times.
Tony B's a great guy.
The
I've
magic.
golfed
back
with
room.
Tony. We go way back. I'm a St. Clair Shores guy, so I've known
Mhm.
Tony forever.
My first, this is we're way off the old Forster Bean Panda.
It
But
doesn't matter.
my first true activation. So I was
It's all
hired,
about stories.
I was hired by Brown Foreman in January of 2020. So if you can do a little bit of math in your head,
Yeah.
a little onboarding, a little education, all of a sudden it's March 2020 and I'm feeling good about myself, ready to go. And March 15th happens and they shut down the Corktown Irish Parade. And like the next day, Michigan's done.
Screeching halt. Yeah.
So I read a message because I had been organizing the Scotch reintroduction of our Scotch portfolio into the Michigan marketplace. And Tony was one of the first people I'd reached out to. I'm like, hey, Tony, I'd love to sit down and do a tasting. And, you and Jack and a few other big names from the off-premise business. I'd love to sit down and talk with you guys and just reintroduce you to our brands. And like, yeah, let's do that. So there's an email exchange out there in the ether somewhere that says, because this started at the end of March. I was like, listen, we're gonna have to postpone for March. Let's reschedule for 90 days out. Either it'll all be over. It'll be in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and we'll all need a drink anyway.
We'll need a drink.
And
in my windowless back room, so the zombies don't see us.
And I couldn't have been more wrong if I tried.
Oh,
it was neither the end of it nor a zombie apocalypse, but that email is in the ether somewhere that it would either be over. We'd all need a drink from the
I
zombie
was actually
apocalypse.
I traveled like in that February, just because we're telling stories.
Yeah.
I flew into Montreal and did a night in Montreal, and they go, "Do you have a fever?" No. Put a little blue dot on my passport. I'm like, okay. Drove to Quebec City, had an amazing time at the there's a winter carnival, went to the Ice Hotel, did that whole thing in Quebec City. I mean, it's negative 40.
Yeah.
I mean, it's freezing. We're wearing like super like all this stuff. We're like drinking in an ice hotel. We get back, and 2 weeks later, they shut the world down.
Wow.
And we were like on planes.
Yeah.
And all around it. And they're like, this, oh, you don't have a fever? Here's a blue sticker. There's a blue sticker on your passport. I left it there because I think it's funny.
So I was on an education trip. I was at Lynchburg, Tennessee. I was at the Jack Daniel's distillery. We were doing a tour as a company. The marketing agency that I work for was taking all of us, and we were doing education. We were at Old Forester, and we were at the Cooperage, and we were at blah blah. So we happened to be on the Jack Daniel's tour. And we walk in and we're walking around, and myself and my counterpart is the person who runs all the activities. Is she a promo model out there doing Jack Daniels? This person was the person.
I thought you were the promo model.
Well, listen,
You are
I
a
have
sexy bitch.
I thought you were
do
the.
have a certain status.
sure.
But I thought you were the hot
But
piece.
I am not the most requested person to do promos, believe it or not. No, but she organizes all of our events and has the girls out there doing the tastings.
Yeah.
So we're on the phone trying to be very cool. We both tugged in our earbuds, and we've got our phones in our pockets. And I understand the Corktown Raiders cancel. Jack, the Springwell, that's awesome. Yeah, we understand the Corktown Raiders cancel. We don't know what you're gonna do. Yeah, no, look at that statue of Jack. Let's take a picture. Okay, well, I guess we could figure out what to do with all this merchandise. We'll just we'll pile next thing. We'll do next thing. And we get into we're finally through this tour, and we've been on the phone for like 80% of it with our Michigan team, and we're looking at it, and so we're done with the tour. We are literally the last tasting that Jeff Arnett hosted with Jack Daniels. He did a full 9-course tasting with us, all the Jack Daniels, all of the Jack Daniels, all of the things. And so we're literally the last tasting that Jeff Arnett ever does with Jack Daniels on the Jack Daniels on the grounds facility. And we're driving back to our hotel, and our boss calls us and says, "Hey, can you guys get rental cars? Because I'm pretty sure they're going to shut the flights down.
Shut it all down. Yeah.
They're going to shut the airports down.
Yeah.
So call right now, get a rental car. If you make your flight, great. Well, and if they won't reimburse you for the car, we'll pay for it. But make sure you've got a way to get home from Tennessee, because I'm not paying for 7 weeks of a hotel." So that's what we did. I called my counterpart. I said, "Hey,
7 weeks would have been like 2 years at a hotel."
Right? It would have had to be forever. So
Room
I called my partner. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm on the phone with Hertz. I have priority status because of blah 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 blah, and I'm reserving us a car right now. It's we've got an SUV. we can make it back to Detroit if our flight gets canceled. She's like, great, awesome. Is the pickup at the airport? Like, pick up is at the airport. We're gonna meet together, and if we get on our flight, we get on our flight. And if we don't get on our flight, we've got a car. And that was literally we got back to Detroit, and the governor was on TV an hour later saying she's shutting down the city.
Yeah,
Wait, we can hold this 15 minutes for the COVID recovery
Right?
edited podcast.
What's your COVID story?
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Oh.
Oh, Brian, dude, thank you so much.
This has been top notch, and
Well, I'm glad you
It
enjoy
is so. Old
yourself.
Forester is available like 50,
Everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
50 states worldwide.
There's no place that Old Forester is not available in the country.
Which one of these is like the retail most expensive or the retail hardest to find?
So right now,
We're
so
talking present day
we
supply
live in-
chain, Michigan.
we live in a world of supply chain issues,
Mhm,
and those
mhm.
supply chain issues have had real world consequences for all of us.
Right.
Right.
The 1920 is our most expensive bottle. It runs around 65 at state minimum.
At Michigan prices.
Michigan state minimum price.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that? Was
No?
that you?
No, I just got one at like 61.22.
Okay, 61.22.
Nice.
No, I-
It was
so
a little
right
less
around
than that, but
65. So
60,
61.22.
Yep. I'm just fucking with you.
No, you're totally fine. The 1897 and the 1870, we have been in and out of stock on back and forth
Right.
for the last month or so, and it's been a glass bottling issue. We run production of one, run production of the other, run production of one, run production of
So-
the
Well, and again, party stores only have so much shelf space.
yeah, but most
and-
of I would say
I mean,
that
are they going to call 7 expressions of your
Yeah,
thing? Or are they going to
most
do
of
2
them
or
are.
3?
most of your, but like Joe,
Yeah. Joe did. Yeah.
Tony, Jack over at Zatunas.
Oh, Jack Zatuna is amazing, dude.
He is
Yeah.
fantastic.
He's fantastic. I like
most
Jack.
of your gooder. That's not
Gooder,
English.
there it
Thank
is.
you. We're not
That's
going
a
to edit
word.
that out. We're
Come
leaving
on.
that right in.
Gooder.
Listen, you got to.
The
I
gooder,
have
the-
to own that.
The
Right
gooder,
there.
I have to own that to be better.
You are the gooder.
people,
Most of our better
Your higher quality.
or your higher end
Yeah.
whiskey establishments are going to
Yeah.
carry all 7 of these. Now,
Alright.
you may walk into Joe's Bait and Tackle shop in somewhere in mid Michigan, and he may only have 1 or 2 of the, and it'll always be these two, one
Fair
or two
play.
of the
Yep.
one or two of
Those-
the whiskey rose, and then he'll have 86 and
Yep,
100,
yep,
86
yep.
and rye. But but most of the Southeast Michigan people who work in the whiskey business, again, I'm thinking Lath at Superfine, I'm thinking Cal at Novi Party Store, I'm
Mhm,
thinking
Well,
Jonah's.
People that know
and
their
Howell.
stuff.
Let's dumb it down. Because I bragged about how this Old Forester 100 proof rye that I
Sure.
really enjoy is available at your Kroger and your Meijer.
Yeah.
Like what is available at your local superstore as you're driving around? Just you're grabbing your case of Bud Light and you want a good whiskey.
Now, do you want me to be a complete jerk off about it, or do
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
me to be honest?
Total
Because a total
jerk
jerk is going to say, do you shop at a Steward Meyer or a Steward Kroger? Because that's going to make a difference, because we do control 85-10 of the floor, and we can sell other things in, and sometimes we've got these, and sometimes we've got
Fair enough.
what you're
So-
always going to be able to find.
That's what I'm
Always,
talking about.
always.
That's what I'm talking about.
85, 100, and rye are almost always going to be available, because those are our price point
Camera?
whiskeys.
Yep.
These
So-
are our price point whiskeys. You're
Now,
always going to be able to
you got
find
the camera.
those.
You got it. You got it.
Now Phil is showing off, saying I can grab the 1920 for $50 here. He's in Kentucky.
Oh, Phil,
Phil?
that's just rude.
You're a brat,
Yeah, that's
and we love you.
That's a
and
little-
well, I'm not going to pay the fuel surcharge for you driving that here. So
Right?
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
$5
yeah.
a gallon, the difference is made up in the
to mule that back up
Yeah,
here. Yeah, that's,
At $5 a gallon, the difference is
but
made
the people
up
that
here.
are living in the heartland there, they
That's
got
okay.
a thing. They got
Well,
the people that live in the heartland of Kentucky.
But Phil,
they
I
got a
like
thing
the
going.
old fine. I like the 1910 better. So don't worry about that
Well,
one.
1920 and 1910 have been pretty universally available. in
I don't need
Michigan for a while
115
now.
proof of
Right.
anything personally.
That,
so.
and that's what I'm saying. There's those
Yeah.
5 I see regularly. These 2 less frequently.
Well, these two are so the number one of our craft goes back and forth between these two.
Fair play.
Yeah.
I'm pointing at the 1910
And then birthday,
The 1910.
because you don't have the birthday in the bottles around. You can't get that.
So birthday is a limited. Do you guys know what birthday bourbon actually is?
Tell me a little bit about birthday bourbon.
Birthday bourbon is our celebration of George Garvin Brown's birthday.
Right.
We distill it once a year, and we bottle it once a year.
Right.
And that bottling date is August 9th of every year, and that distillation date is August 9th of every year.
Mm.
We fill as many barrels as we can, and we bottle as many barrels as we can on August
people want
9th.
that. Because people want that shit.
And what we well and
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
here's the
That's fun too.
well, and here's the true secret of a birthday bourbon. The first time we made birthday bourbon, the first 5 years that we made birthday bourbon, 2013 through 2000.
Yeah, this wasn't a traditional thing. This is
No.
a more recent thing. Last decade.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first
Let's
first-
do this kooky
let's
thing.
call the first 5 years we made birthday bourbon. We had 8 stacks, 5 stacks, 6 stacks sitting on the floors of party stores that no one was freaking buying
That was before the craze hit.
That was before the craze.
before the bourbon boom
Yeah,
hits, and
yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden people are like, "I'll pay $750 for that bottle." I was like, "Cool, we're charging $140." Well, our price is $140. Our price has kind of always been around $140.
Yeah, yeah.
It's our only age statement. It's always over 10 years old. It's always between 12 and 14, except for once when it was 10. By the way, that was the best year. I'm not joking. It was
Wow. Okay.
I'm not
Yeah,
mad at
yeah,
you.
Yeah, yeah.
the 2020 peanut butter and banana sandwich, Old Forester birthday bourbon, was by far. Oh, you
called it peanut butter and banana sandwich?
It was. I call it the Elvis Presley. It was a peanut butter and banana sandwich.
So
it
you
was
got that out of that?
unbelievable.
Really?
It was. Oh, okay. Listen,
Did you have it?
Papa Harden.
Did you
I
have
had
it?
hang
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I got it. I'm turning my mic so I can get closer to you and be more aggressive.
Ah,
Next time we do a podcast together,
okay.
I actually have a little bit of 2020 left,
All right.
and you and I are gonna taste it.
Ah.
And
Let's do this.
I dare you to tell me. I dare you. Just tell me it's not the best.
All right. Well, maybe it wasn't the right time when I drank it.
You might have already been drunk.
I might have already been.
What if
I
you
might
were
have
at,
already had
if
another
you were at the butter
cocktail
run?
before then.
If you were at the butter run, chances
I-
are.
but-
I do like this dynamic of us leaning
Yeah,
in, just
it's
staring
leaning
the
in.
mics,
It is.
staring into each other's eyes.
Squinting.
It is.
Squinting
Tight
at each other.
eyes.
Tight eyes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right.
So
Leaning
here's
back and leaning
Whoa.
forward again.
the butter run
Yeah.
saloon, though. The
Oh,
thing
yeah,
about
no.
that, oh,
I know,
that's-
but
when you get deep, you
Let's
get
have
deep,
this
but,
burb off.
a bourbon, not a bourbon.
No,
A
burb
bourbon
off.
We did a
At Butter
tasting
Run. I'm
up
happy
in-
to do that with you.
in the
Yeah,
upper. we-
I love going back into the catalog of.
yeah.
I have long said that the 2016 and the 2015 were two of my favorite Old Forester. This is obviously 5-6 years before
Sure.
I actually worked for the company.
Sure.
Those two expressions of Old Forester were always my favorites. There was a 16 and a 14-year-old, and I always thought they were far and away the most enjoyable of just full palate coverage. You know, front, middle, back, hearty, sweet, spicy. The whole thing, the whole package was incorporated in those bourbons. I
See,
thought
when-
they were the best bourbons in the U.S. I think that when Jackie took over, no one's ever said for sure. My instinct is that the female palate really took over in 2020 and 2021, and they just became so much more bold and robust,
Yeah.
and the volume
Yeah.
got turned up on specific accent
I
notes. and
bought a
loved it.
Rosie
Women have a
the Ri-
deeper palate than men.
I bought
Oh, they do,
a
for sure.
Rosie
We've
the
have a deeper
Riveter
palate.
small batch
Yeah, yeah.
from
Oh,
Tony
yeah,
of
yeah,
a certain
yeah.
of a
Yeah.
certain competitive
I know what you're
brand.
talking about. Yeah,
But it was
for
a
sure.
Rosie the Riveter brand,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was marketed to women.
Yeah.
And I give it to my brother-in-law. I said, "This is one of the best of this version." I get it.
Yeah,
Cool.
no,
Pretty
listen, we are definitely the inferior gender. It's fine. We are who we are.
I'm comfortable with it.
I live where I live. I'm a father of daughters. It's good. Uh,
All right.
but yeah, if you look at birthday bourbon is a unique one-off product. We try to make as much of it as we can. We want everybody to drink our product, but because of the nature of that particular product, and the way that it's produced, for the reason that it's produced, we are confined to that 24-hour window of distillation and bottling and so on and so forth. So when people say, "Oh, you say you're a bourbon of the people, but you never make enough birthday bourbon," well,
There's 24 hours, dude.
if I made birthday bourbon every day for the next 5 years,
you
I
really
still wouldn't have enough birthday
Well,
bourbon at the
you
end
could
of
go.
12
It's our
years.
birthday week. It's our birthday month. If really, because there are people that would go, "Hey, it's our birthday week. It's
Yeah.
our birthday month," and they would stretch it to, manipulate that market.
Sure, yeah.
And again, that like how you were honest about things earlier. It's like I freaking love that.
The integrity
It's
of the
thank
brand
you.
is
Thank
important.
you. Thank you. And
Brian,
yes.
what are we toasting out with? We're hitting the 2-hour mark right now. We're hitting the 2-hour mark right now.
I'm sorry, guys.
And
I,
hey,
No.
look, I
you
just looked
invited
at
a
my
guy
watch.
who talks for a living. I apologize.
I
Well,
didn't-
I'm going to grab some 1910 because I think
didn't
that's
even
where
feel-
my palate's at. Today.
I didn't even feel like that's the one that's your favorite fave.
Yes,
I'll
The
round
old
I'll
fine.
round it
Oh,
out.
here
with
you go,
guys.
gentlemen. I'll let you guys pull that out.
Yeah,
and,
the old fine 1910.
Hit me,
is
Mick, hit me.
actually the
Hit me.
original, like you said, the original accidental double oak.
the original
Cut me,
accidental
Mick. Cut
double-
me.
Tell me, Mick.
I think you've already been cut. You're
I
bleeding
know,
out
I-
right now, buddy.
We were,
All right.
I was not my idea to eat chips. You had to eat chips in front of a
I
microphone.
have you chips because you needed something to eat.
It would have been. It would have been. It would have been.
I'm not the professional DJ who's been on the microphone for 30 years. You are.
Oh.
Listen, stones are being thrown is all I heard. Stones are being thrown. So
All I know is, hey,
in the Gaelic, we will say slanchava. So
as a German, I'll say Prost.
Polish boy, Nostrovia.
That's Nostrovia. Cheers, guys.
Slanta.
Cheers.
Brian, thanks for being here with us on the Man Cave Happy Hour.
Happy to be here.
Wrap it up there, Jamie.
That's it. We're done. That was it.
Like and
Cheers.
subscribe, all those stuff and
No,
things.
we had it with cheers, mofo.
All right.
One more time, guys. Cheers.
One more.
Slancha.
Good night, folks. Thank you.